rolling for 8 days and 8 nights before falling. Harlan said nothing, calming his increasingly agitated heart as he approached the demon, holding a physical sword, and walked to Angrath's side, looking up at the bloodthirster, who was over 8 meters tall. "Let the clash of our blades be the signal." Angrath saw a human approaching him without fear, and secretly affirmed his courage. "All right, Angrath likes your courage. The blood god likes your proposal. It has ritualistic significance, and gods love rituals." Then, with a tacit understanding, the man and the demon swung their weapons, letting the two blades collide. Clang! The crisp signal sounded, and a battle between man and demon began. The moment the signal sounded in its ears, the bloodthirster, who had long been unable to restrain itself, let out a furious roar, raised its arm, flexed its crimson muscles, and swung a long whip covered in barbs with its left hand. Snap tilde! The blood god-blessed whip lashed through the air, the piercing sonic boom from the whip's tip accompanied by a soul-shattering power. The evil long whip, made of brass and leather, whipped out a blood-red phantom. The seemingly limited-length whip extended as it was swung, like a blood python striking at Blazkowicz. That long whip seemed very strange, entangled with some inexplicable power, but it didn't seem to pose a threat to him. The moment the bloodthirster swung the long whip, his body's instincts and brain provided the answer. Blazkowicz's mind completed the threat assessment in picoseconds. Taking a deep breath, he now needed to release the surging fury within him, the churning hatred. From the first glance at the demon, something primal in his soul seemed to activate, and an endless wave of disgust washed over him. To the bloodthirster's surprise, Blazkowicz extended one hand and grabbed the unpredictable long whip, wrapping it steadily around his arm. The greater demon's face was filled with wild joy. The blood god-blessed whip, if it hit someone, would tear out their soul. The young god before him seemed to be overconfident. No matter how powerful the physical body, the soul is relatively fragile. Once the soul is stripped in the real universe, even the most powerful being has only one path: death. A terrifying, triumphant smile appeared on the bloodthirster's face. Its beast-like, elongated lips parted, revealing jagged, overlapping fangs. It seemed to see the beautiful scene of the young god's soul being ripped apart, and him being ravaged. The violently red body suddenly exerted force, pulling the long whip backward, intending to pull out the soul and also drag Blazkowicz's body towards it. The next moment, the greater demon's smile froze. Anger and bewilderment twisted the demon's face, and its furious roar abruptly stopped. Blazkowicz stood still, feeling the pulling force from the whip, but his heart was filled with doubt. What was with the triumphant smile on the demon's face? The demon's long whip felt no different from an ordinary whip, just with a few more brass spikes. "How is this possible?" the bloodthirster shrieked in surprise. Even the multitude of demons below found it incredible. Its red body pulled backward, its bloody hooves scraping Mars on the arena, but the person opposite remained motionless. Looking at the long whip in the young god's hand, and feeling the feedback from the whip, the demon's heart experienced doubt for the first time. The young god's soul and body were intimately connected, two parts of a seamless whole, inseparable from each other. Not only his soul, but his body also possessed extraordinary power. Even with the whip pulled taut, he stood there, unshakable by anyone. The bloodthirster felt like an ant, attempting to use the strength of an ant to pull mountains with the long whip in its hand. "Is that all demons are capable of?" Blazkowicz asked, a look of disappointment on his face. He had originally thought that an existence capable of eliciting such a reaction from him should be uniquely powerful. His expression gradually grew cold, and the killing intent in his chest erupted. He instantly unleashed power in his hand, pulling the long whip and dragging the still-stunned demon from a distance. "I'll kill you," his arm pulled with sudden force. The low, sharp roar startled the dazed demon awake. The strength it possessed felt illusory. Its body was pulled by the force from the whip, involuntarily flying towards the young god. Blazkovich's killing intent erupted at this moment. This killing intent was so real, not a false rage provoked by the demon, but a genuine desire to kill because he wanted to. He wanted to rip and tear this demon to bits. At this moment, disregarding shame, the bloodthirster released its grip, allowing Blazkovich to take the weapon. It maintained balance in the air, its bat-like wings flapping once, ascending in height to gain a three-dimensional combat advantage. Boo! The crowd booed. The bloodthirster's actions were not only despised by the sentinels, but also disdained by its own brethren. A two-dimensional fight suddenly became three-dimensional. For seasoned warriors or ferocious demons, the advantage gained was incomparable. Blazkovich forcefully swung the long whip, his excellent control making its trajectory unpredictable, dazzlingly wrapping around the demon's neck. "Get down!" With a low shout, his physical strength erupted, and the bloodthirster in the air plummeted at supersonic speed. In that dazzling moment, the bloodthirster gripped the long whip, frantically flapping its wings to struggle, trying to escape its falling fate. Unfortunately, all its efforts were in vain. Like a dog on a leash, it had no dignity. An unrivaled, irresistible force ripped it from the air, smashing it heavily onto the ground. Banged! Accompanied by a tremor and a wail, the demon's body was like a mosquito hitting steel at high speed. Rotten flesh and blood burst from its body, its neck snapped at a right angle, its crimson tongue slid from its mouth and twitched, and its powerful body, forged by rage, was now completely fractured, its bloody bat wings tattered beyond recognition. From furious to on the verge of death, the entire process took less than 3 seconds. Blazkovich, Blazkovich, Blazkovich. The excited roars of the sentinels celebrated the victory. In their view, the battle was too simple. The warlord caught the long whip, a single tug forcing the demon into the air, then using the demon's weapon to entangle the bloodthirster, pulling hard to smash the demon to the ground, easily securing victory. Abominable creatures, you cannot defeat him. What do you have to defeat him? Ha ha ha! Harlan removed his helmet, his triumphant expression contorting the scars on his face as he laughed wildly, pointing at the demons with an unbridled taunt, displaying unparalleled mental attack power. Despicable things, you dare to be his enemy. The demons were all silent, not responding to Harlan's humiliation. Under the blood god's gaze, the bloodthirster's defeat was undeniable. Blazkovich felt no joy of victory. The anger in his heart had not dissipated in the slightest. He walked to the dying demon, bent down and pulled its arm, planting his foot on its mighty back. Amidst the astonished gazes of the crowd and the demon's anguished wails, he ripped off its left arm, which still clutched the greatsword. Die, wielding the crimson arm, the demon's bloody greatsword beheaded itself. Blazkovich kicked out, sending the demon's head with its terrified expression into its chest. The demon's body exploded, completely losing its life force and vanished into Mars. Roared. The greater demons howled to the sky, bloodthirsty and cruel. The scene of violent aesthetics made them tremble with excitement. Not for a moment did they grieve for it. The blood god tolerated no weakness, and the dead bloodthirster proved its weakness. Unlike the bloodthirster's explosive passion, Blazkovich felt something unusual. He clearly felt that as the demon completely died and turned to ash, an essential essence flowed from the demon into his body, strengthening his power somewhat. It was definitely not an illusion or hallucination. His bodily functions would not lie. Blazkovich lightly clenched his hand and indeed felt an increase in strength. It was clear and tangible. Blazkovich secretly compared it. The increased strength was 1%. The slain bloodthirster's form was destroyed in reality, its essence returning to the warp. Demons are almost immortal. When beings in the real universe die, their souls return to the warp to rest, but demons are different. They are residents of the warp, their essence belonging to the warp. The destruction of their physical form in the real universe merely expels demons, sending them back to the warp. The bloodthirster returned to the warp, waking up beneath the skull throne, feeling an unprecedented weakness. It could barely maintain its body, staggering and kneeling before Khorne. "My lord." It was so weak that even the endless rage bestowed by the blood god had ceased. Praises to the blood god should have been deafening, demonstrating the power of the blood god's servants, but now they were too weak to even form. Khorne sat on the skull throne, watching his servant with interest. The bloodthirster, its essence damaged, was now extremely frail, kneeling on the ground with its bat wings spread to cover its body, avoiding the blood god seeing its weak state. The blood god saw deeper. Beyond the bloodthirster's conventional weakness, a part of its pure essence had vanished, torn apart and completely gone from its concept. He liked this law: the weak lose everything and the strong win everything. His gaze pierced through the warp, seeing the man standing in the arena. His soul fire burned brighter and his power grew stronger. "Plunder." Khorne rested one hand on his sword, the other, encased in brass, cupping his cheek. He was thinking. Is this Blazkovich's essence? He had never shown such power. Killing numerous orcs by hand did not plunder their essence. Khorne recalled their first meeting in the warp, the scene where Blazkovich's soul burned Tzinch's palm. He slowly nodded, seemingly understanding something. An untwistable and uncorruptible purity was his exclusive, mysterious essence, and the concepts and qualities contained within that purity were unknown to the gods. The plunder Blazkovich displayed seemed to be a plunder of demonic essence, just a part of his unknown power. Realizing this, Khorne's gaze was like a torch, sweeping over the greater demon's body, and he discovered another clue. The brass armor creaked as he sat upright on the skull throne, no longer leaning back. The bloodthirster before him had not only had its essential essence plundered, but a part of its true name had also been erased. This discovery made the blood god serious. Erasing a demon's true name required a concept that transcended the demon. A true name is not a demon's designation. It is the name a demon is born with, the truth deeply hidden by the demon. Demons do not expose their true names. That is their inherent power, but also their fragile weakness. A demon whose true name is spoken in the real universe will at best be banished, at worst be captured and enslaved by the one who spoke it. A demon whose true name is erased will completely disappear, vanishing from all timelines, past, present, and future. The true name is the concept upon which demons depend, and also their only weakness. Demons hide their true names, then run rampant because their true names are unknown to anyone, and no one can truly harm them. Only true gods in the world can see through and erase a demon's true name. Now there appeared an anomaly. He was not a true god and was even in the real universe. He killed demons in reality, not only plundering their power but also erasing a part of their true name. He possessed power that made demons fear and true gods wary. That was a true god's authority, which should not appear in the real universe, but it genuinely existed within Blazkovich. Blazkovich had done it, killed a demon in the real universe and erased a part of its lengthy true name. Khorne opened his great mouth, exhaling a mist of blood that enveloped the defeated bloodthirster, refilling its true name. As for its damaged essence, the blood god would not help it repair. The plundered essence it had to reclaim itself. Then, with a wave of his hand, he cast it out of the skull throne's vicinity. The weak were not worthy of appearing before him. The greater bloodthirster fell onto the bloody wasteland. If it could plunder the essence of other demons and return alive beneath the skull throne, the blood god would reaccept it. But more often, the weakened bloodthirster would be targeted by other demons, torn to shreds by swarming demons and devoured. The blood god's gaze returned to the real universe, watching the battle between his servants and his favored demigod. Blazkovich was not excited by the increase in power. He remained expressionless, as if crushing an ant without any excitement or joy. "Come at me all at once, I'm in a hurry." Defeating these bloodthirsters meant he could leave here sooner, and Blazkovich was anxious. Every moment, Enio's established defenses were being assaulted by demons. He had to hurry. Perhaps sensing Blazkovich's power, or perhaps due to his invitation, 8 bloodthirsters leaped onto the dueling ground. To the astonishment of the sentinels, the dueling arena began to expand, forcing them to retreat to a distance to watch the battle. Blazkovich's hand reached for his waist, wanting to draw his longsword for a quick resolution, but he stopped. Deep down, he always wanted to tear the demons apart alive, to make them feel pain and fear. Clang! Again, swords clashed, and a new round of battle began under the blood god's gaze. 8 bloodthirsters swarmed forward. Blazkovich's gaze was like lightning, his figure twisting like a dragon, taking the initiative to attack within the encirclement. Blazkovich's speed was at its limit, difficult for the naked eye to catch, with sonic booms constantly echoing. The sounds were left behind him, the world falling into a delayed silence. The demon's roars and howls couldn't catch up to his movements, nor reach his ears. The first one. The bloodthirster's speed was fast, but Blazkovich was even faster. The demon's downward-pressing dive, with its head on the same horizontal plane, gave Blazkovich the chance to kill it. Rapidly advancing to the demon's face, in its terrified eyes, Blazkovich used his palm as a blade. His hand blade inserted from the lower jaw, piercing the tough skin, breaking through the maxilla and crushing its fragile brain. Fiery brain matter erupted like magma from the demon's eyes and nasal cavity. Blazkovich transformed his palm into a claw, his 5 fingers suddenly tightening, changing from a stab to a tear, ripping downwards violently. The tongue, throat, along with the skin of the neck and the demonic organs within the chest cavity, were all torn off. Even that strong and powerful demonic heart was crushed by him. Suddenly, a gust of wind rose behind his ear, bringing the ripple of tearing air. Blazkovich simply turned sideways and spun to face the demon. The instant he dodged the attack, Blazkovich backhanded and grabbed the demon's forearm. Crack! A crisp snapping sound rang out. Bones transmit sound faster than air. Blazkovich grabbed the demon's forearm with one hand and struck the demon's joint with his other elbow, breaking its thick arm. Tearing off the sinews, he bent the weapon tightly held in its hand back, inserting it into the demon's brain, instantly killing the second bloodthirster. Power flowed continuously, Blazkovich's inner rage undiminished, his expression growing colder as he was bathed in demonic blood. Dodging a demon's swing, then grabbing an incoming long whip, a cold snort echoed in the bloodthirster's ear. An unmatched immense force came, and the whip in his hand was already released, wrapping around the leg of another greater demon. With a sudden tug, its legs stretched forward, and its body tilted backward. Its bat-like wings flapped violently to prevent a fall. Blazkovich charged between the demon's legs, lifted his foot, and kicked with full force, shattering its hip bone and spine. Amidst the demon's painful shrieks, he placed his hands on its legs separately, rousing all his strength, and tore them apart. Die! The roar in his heart transformed into power. The bloodthirster's body was like paper, torn in half by him, and the demonic blood surging in its abdomen erupted. He didn't stop. Blazkovich spun to gather strength, throwing the 2 corpses in his hands, accurately striking 2 demons. The terrifying force caused their bodies to collide, muscles crashing together, bones piercing each other's bodies, and the brass armor blessed by the blood god violently clashing, even merging together. After dealing with 5, a shadow was cast from the sky above, which was ignited by blood and fire. A greater demon descended from above, filled with boundless fury. His gaze remained unchanged. In the nanosecond gap before the greatsword fell, he dodged the attack with a seemingly effortless yet incredibly precise sideways movement. Failing to hit, the greater demon's speed did not decrease as it stooped and rushed past, quickly escaping Blazkovich's attack range. Yet in the next instant, its vision uncontrollably shifted. Looking back, the young god had already grabbed one of its wings, watching it with cold eyes. Tearing pain came from the base of the wing. The greater demon roared and spun. With a violent sense of weightlessness, Blazkowicz lifted it to its highest point and slammed it down. Only half of the greater demon's shattered body remained on the ground. The other half disintegrated and splattered the moment it hit the ground. Everything happened too fast. Two bloodthirsters remained on the field. They wielded their weapons, fearless of death, attacking Blazkowicz from both sides. An encirclement of 8 greater demons had been shattered. How could an attack from 2 greater demons defeat him? They had grown smarter, trying to raise their bodies as much as possible, using their physical advantage to avoid vital points being attacked. Blazkowicz saw through the greater demon's plan, using his speed advantage, and suddenly lunged to the right, beneath the greater demon. He kicked out, hitting its backward-bending demonic knee solidly. Another sound of bone breaking came. Blazkowicz's body was indestructible. The greater demon flapped its wings to maintain balance. Blazkowicz's figure was like an ape climbing a tree, flexibly scaling the greater demon's back. Feeling the vigorously beating demonic heart, he used his hand as a blade, inserting it through the gap in the shoulder blade, grabbing the slippery heart and crushing it with force. The demon beneath him slowly fell. Another one charged up, swinging its battle axe. It wouldn't care about its kin, only wanting to kill the young god. Blazkowicz's expression remained unchanged, silent as ice. He embraced the corpse beneath him and exerted force, spinning with the demon's still lingering corpse, dodging another attack. When the demon's corpse vanished, he landed steadily and made no further movements, calmly looking at the solitary bloodthirster. There were also 2 severely wounded greater demons lying on the ground, their bodies and half-corpses stuck together. The stage fell silent, and the audience below erupted. His movements were faster than a whirlwind, his attacks as sharp as a sudden downpour, tearing apart all filth that stood before him. Blazkowicz, Blazkowicz, Blazkowicz. The Sentinel's commander pounded his spear on the ground, shouting his name, his face flushed beneath his helmet, his voice trembling with excitement. What kind of power was this? What kind of invincibility was this? A god's demeanor, a war god on earth. These words felt so powerless at this moment, unable to describe the heroic posture of the man on stage. For the first time, the Sentinels felt that it would be good if those scholarly civil officials were present. They would surely be able to write the most valiant poems for Blazkowicz and create words that matched him. The bloodthirsters fell silent. They had once guarded the borderlands of the 4 gods' domains and even felt jealousy towards Blazkowicz, not understanding why the blood god favored him. Now, seeing that figure standing bathed in demonic blood, they understood everything. Blazkowicz, Blazkowicz, Blazkowicz. Angrath was the first to let out a roar. The roars of the bloodthirsters were like thunder, cheering for the true strong one. Amazing! Behind the curtain, Khorne slammed his fist on the armrest of the skull throne. A joyous roar echoed throughout his domain, blowing away the bloodthirsters who had returned from reality. The blood gods still filled in their true names, throwing them far away without caring for their lives. He wished he could tear up the 4 gods' agreement and immediately embrace him, building a special chair for him beside the skull throne. Look at him, he didn't even pant. Facing 8 bloodthirsters alone, Angrath could do it. Skarbrand could do it, that exile could do it. Many powerful bloodthirsters could do it. But never so cleanly and swiftly, a bare-handed slaughter, wonderfully pleasing to the eye. The last bloodthirster, seeing Blazkowicz's cold, unchanging gaze, subconsciously took a step back, which drew more boos. It felt the blood god's displeasure. Under immense pressure, it let out a frantic roar, charging at Blazkowicz recklessly. Eventually, the demon's legs were broken, and it crawled on the ground. Blazkowicz's combat boot crushed its head. He also killed the 2 half-dead bloodthirsters struggling on the ground, declaring victory in the first round. Continue. His strong and invigorating voice was now devoid of any emotion, his gaze cold as he looked down at the stage below. there was still a group of greater demons waiting to be killed. He didn't even bother with any unnecessary interaction with them. His inner hostility and hatred remained undiminished. Only dead demons were good demons. Boom, boom, boom. Just as the greater demons were about to increase their numbers again and swarm forward, the blood pool formed by the night town boiled once more, and a figure exuding a majestic aura emerged, bathed in blood. The exile. Angrath's roar was full of disgust. He raised the battle axe in his hand, aimed it at the figure emerging from the blood pool, and roared furiously, "Are you going to desecrate the blood god's glory again?" As the demonic figure appeared, the bloodthirsters' rage seemed to find an outlet. They all gripped their weapons, wanting to rush up and tear it apart alive. Blazkovich also saw the demonic figure clearly. Although it was tall and strong, its body was covered in scars. The membrane of its blood-colored bat wings was badly torn, hanging in tatters on the skeleton. Its brass armor was also broken, with several parts missing. Its head was similar to a bloodthirster's, yet not entirely the same. Its 4 demonic horns were larger and more feral, but also severely injured. One horn on the side of its head was broken off. On its hideous face, one eye glowed with angry red light, while the other eye emitted a blue light. The skin on the side of its blue eye was peeled away, revealing bare white bone. It shook its head, seemingly very disoriented. It stopped at a distance of 88 paces from the arena and the demon army. It plunged its 2 axes into the ground and suddenly knelt. This unexpected action left the humans and demons present somewhat unclear about its intentions. "I, Skarbrand, the exile, a sinful body." Its voice was hoarse from burning, a painful struggle. Each time it spoke, it swayed its head, trying to stay as clear-headed as possible. Blazkovich remained silent. He didn't want any new complications, but reality always placed obstacles on the path forward. Enio's reinforcements were blocked by demons. Only a few minutes had passed, and another unexpected event occurred. Skarbrand, he was once the Skull Throne's chief greater demon and Khorne's most favored general. His twin axes shattered the allied armies of gods. He breached Slaanesh's 6th ring, destroyed countless worlds, and crowned the blood god's name with endless slaughter and destruction. But one day, Tzinch noticed this powerful demon, and he decided to toy with the proud bloodthirster. The Lord of Change's whispers echoed in his ears, praising his strength, suggesting that the bloodthirster's achievements surpassed Khorne's, and that he should replace the blood god on the Skull Throne. The bloodthirster, forged purely from rage, actually believed Tzinch's words. During an audience with the blood god, he took advantage of his distraction and struck Khorne's armor with the blood axe in his hand. The earth-shattering fury left only an insignificant crack on the god's armor. His despicable act of betrayal thoroughly enraged Khorne. The blood god, eternally seated on the Skull Throne, stood up, leaning on his greatsword, and with one hand, grabbed Skarbrand by the neck and hurled him out of the blood god's domain. In the warp, where there is no concept of time, Skarbrand tumbled through the air for 8 days and 8 nights, crashing into the boundless wasteland of the warp, his body plowing a canyon into the ground. His wings were burned, his armor was tattered, and his body, cast from power and fury, was covered in unhealing wounds due to the blood god's displeasure. Even the bloodthirster's form underwent a fundamental change. His blood-red eyes, burning with furious flames, no longer held pure rage due to the Lord of Change's interference. One eyeball glowed with a blue light. Khorne stripped him of his reason, branded him with an unforgivable crime, and he became the Exiled One. In the warp, he ceaselessly unleashed his fury, spreading the blood god's name, atoning for his sins. Now Skarbrand had come uninvited, sensing the blood god's ritual, and took the opportunity to cross into the real universe. The ecstatic blood god was observing the real universe, which was a rare opportunity to avoid being expelled back to the warp the moment he appeared. He ignored the bloodthirster's rage and Angrath's warning. Skarbrand knelt on the ground, struggling to maintain the last vestiges of clarity in his mind, and pleaded with the blood god on his knees, begging for forgiveness and a return to the skull throne. Blood god. Skarbrand knelt and looked up, 88 meters from the arena, not daring to offend the blood god's ritual. He knew the blood god was watching, and his gaze had never left. The blood god's gaze was always present. Though the bloodthirsters were angry, they dared not overstep. If he did not wish to see Skarbrand, a divine decree would have already been issued, expelling the exile. My lord, perhaps it was the god's gaze, Skarbrand's sanity seemed to return somewhat, allowing him to express himself clearly. This humble, discarded servant dares not hope for forgiveness, only to shed the blood of repentance with this broken body for you. Skarbrand made no demands, yet it caused Angrath's hand, gripping his weapon, to tighten. He felt the blood god hesitating. Pleading would not bring divine favor. Pure, selfless devotion, however, might earn a god's regard. Exiled for countless ages, Skarbrand's broken sanity seemed to have grown smarter. I have no interest in your grievances, those redemptions and pardons. Blazkowicz stood on the stage, interrupting the communication between demon and god. He only wanted to finish the duel and leave. Hurry up, the duel continues. Cough, 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 cough. A coughing-like laugh came from the blood clouds and blood pool, intensely familiar to Blazkowicz, confirming it was the god of war within the crimson space. Blazkowicz recalled his ignorant childhood. When he asked his mother about the faith of the City of Truth, she squatted down, her gentle face suddenly becoming serious. Gods are false lies, and so is faith. At this moment, Blazkowicz wholeheartedly agreed. Gods truly are liars. What god of war? Clearly it's the blood god worshipped by demons. The sky of burning blood clouds was torn by an armored giant claw, and angry blood-red lightning surged from the crack. The blood in the blood pool began to burn, turning into scorching magma, and a vast divine power descended. The sentinels gripped their spears to support themselves, preventing themselves from kneeling, while simultaneously sealing their minds and five senses like standing corpses, not daring to accept any external information. Harlan, usually unrestrained, now closed his eyes tightly, muttering the warrior's law under his breath, constantly fighting against the uncontrollable rage within him in the surging, scorching blood. A magnificent voice came from the void, and the greater bloodthirster knelt, his bat-like wings folded, trembling. The real universe is different from the warp. In the warp, bloodthirster demons are at their peak, able to face divine power directly without fear of being dispersed by it. Divine power is also suppressed in the real universe, but the bloodthirster is suppressed even more. The difference in their ranks and concepts is immense. The divine power emanating from the blood god's words caused the bloodthirster's body to disintegrate like grains of sand, gradually becoming unable to maintain its form in the real universe. Only Blazkowicz remained on the field, his expression normal, standing perfectly straight and gazing up at the void, his sharp eyes scrutinizing the existence of the god. As you wish. The magnificent voice was as vast as the firmament, rumbling and causing the void to tremble. It was unclear if it was answering Blazkowicz or Skarbrand. Or perhaps it agreed with both. As his voice fell, the current chief greater demon, Angrath, transformed into a streak of blood light and returned to the void, leaving the real universe. The other bloodthirsters, under the blood god's pressure, exploded into blood mist, merging into Skarbrand's body. The blood god agreed to Blazkowicz's suggestion of a quick battle, and also promised Skarbrand a chance. A chance to defeat Blazkowicz and prove himself still useful. In the swirling blood mist, Skarbrand greedily devoured the energy of his kin. His broken body was gradually reshaped, and his sanity and power returned. His eyes gradually narrowed. Blazkowicz felt a threat surging from the blood mist. That broken demon seemed to have been given an opportunity by its master. The god had even injected the power of the bloodthirsters into his body. When he first appeared, Blazkowicz was certain he could defeat him, But now, the unified bloodthirster made him feel a danger he had never experienced before. HMPH, HMPH, HMPH. The demon's snickering was no longer painful. His voice was unrestrained and wild. The blood god had given him a chance. If Skarbrand defeated the young god before him, he could return to the Skull Throne. Khorne loved Blazkowicz, but he also didn't mind killing him. Only the strong were worthy of divine favor. Khorne was the embodiment of conflict, and eliminating the weak was his nature. The demon absorbed all the blood mist, wielded 2 great axes, and spread his wings with overwhelming demonic might, his shadow obscuring the burning sky. Blazkowicz took the hilt from his waist and extended the blade. He said nothing, his expression serious, staring coldly at the reformed monstrous beast. From the bone handles of those 2 primitive great axes, he felt the aura of the bloodthirsters. 2 fierce weapons infused with 2 bloodthirsters, their smooth blades filled with hatred and greed. Skarbrand walked into the arena, his 8-meter-tall body crimson and muscular, even more imposing than other bloodthirsters. He felt the blood god's blessing, the power of dozens of bloodthirsters surging within his body, constantly clamoring for the release of slaughter. Skarbrand. His self-introduction received no response. Skarbrand looked, and in the young god's eyes there was only a resolute determination to win and a hateful killing intent. No more words were needed now. The killing intent had arrived. Roar. Accompanied by a bloodthirsty roar, every cell of Skarbrand screamed, the resolve in his voice equally firm. Clang. The clash of sword and axe, the piercing sound of impact, formed a visible shockwave. Neither side could lose, nor did they have any reason to lose. Behind the curtain, Angreth returned to the Skull Throne, guarding the blood god, watching the earth-shattering duel together, amazed by the power of both sides. Blood spurted. Both sides in the weapon clash's momentary standstill were injured by the other's immense strength. Their web between thumb and forefinger were torn, and the skin on the back of their hands and forearms, gripping their weapons, cracked and capillaries burst. The flowing blood made Skarbrand roar in excitement. The blood god's blessing made him ignore the pain, and he continued to wield his demonic weapons, fully immersing himself in the battle. Blazkowicz was expressionless, parrying the demon's great axe with his sword, and the tiny wounds on his hand immediately healed. He felt no excitement, only a cold rage against the demon surging in his chest. Chapter 38. Find HIM. Boom! Another loud bang, and before the sentinels could catch their breath or collect the bodies of their fallen comrades on the battlefield, it happened again. 6 minutes after the battle ended, a strange light glowed within the high walls of the City of Truth, and as the city gates reopened, the Slaanesh army reappeared. As far as the eye could see, it was still those bizarre and enchanting keepers of secrets, led by Shalaxi Hellbane. After several rebirths, the demon army around it now included heavy war machines, abominable engines inhabited by demonic essence. "Sir, we need reinforcements," the adjutant said, his voice hoarse and muffled in the command room. 1,000 sentinels had repelled several demon attacks in the past hour, without a moment's rest. They had suffered heavy casualties, but stabilized the front line again and again. As the demon attacks continued, the number of casualties gradually increased, and the front line was constantly shrinking. The demon attacks grew sharper each time, their numbers and types constantly changing, and they were continuously sending in more troops. "We cannot call for reinforcements. Moving personnel from other blockade zones would put us at a disadvantage," Enio said, his usually gentle and refined face now stern and cold. He decisively rejected the adjutant's suggestion, seriously considering the current situation. When he left the Argentum, his father had only given the order to wait for Blazkowicz and then combine forces to attack the wizard's city. Now the City of Truth had launched an attack first, using an unprecedented method. Those supernatural demons could not be truly killed. Each time they were eliminated, they would reappear on the battlefield shortly after. Enio understood clearly that the demon's appearance and rebirth must be related to the City of Truth. The priests in the city definitely had rituals to control demons. The demon's source of power and rebirth was undoubtedly a grand ritual. But now, the sentinels could not counterattack and enter the City of Truth to eliminate the source. The city, built on the third orbital pillar, was protected by ancient technology: multi-dimensional shields, large energy shields, and void shields. Before overloading the layers of shields, heavy firepower was difficult to project into the city. And overloading the various complex composite shields would require an astronomical amount of energy and firepower. Only ground infantry could enter the city, but the priests' psychic shields were a problem, and demon troops had appeared to block the sentinels. The demon army could not be eliminated, and was eroding the sentinels' individual combat advantage, pushing the battle into a strange, one-sided attrition. Enio stared at the holographic map, constantly recalling the day his father summoned him. "They won't rush out," his father said with a firm expression on his haggard and tired face. "They won't launch a frontal assault until they have absolute certainty." His heart trembled suddenly as he remembered his father's most crucial words. They won't launch a frontal assault until they have absolute certainty. Enio gradually realized what he needed to do and resolutely ordered: "Notify the other blockade zones. Order them to abandon the blockade and evacuate in an orderly manner." The command room suddenly fell silent. Such an order went against King Noak, and the messenger cast a look of confirmation for the order. "The battle here is meaningless now. The precious lives of the sentinels cannot be wasted here." The eldest son finally understood that his father's strategic goal was to blockade, to prevent the City of Truth from spreading its influence, and to avoid the excessive misuse of witchcraft and psychic magic. When the priests in the city attacked outwards, it meant they were ready for an offensive, and the blockade had lost its meaning. After all, facing a demon army, the sentinels did not understand them and had no way to counter their rebirth. The current sacrifices were meaningless. They had to leave quickly and preserve their strength. "Quick, be quick," the prince roared in a low voice, anxiously issuing the retreat order. "Tell them to leave quickly, not to gather in large groups, but to split into small units." "Sir, what about the evacuation assembly point?" The messenger also realized the seriousness of the problem and quickly inquired, confirming the assembly point after the evacuation. Enio's mind raced. Unknown enemies were endless, and all the changes were brought about by the arrival of Blazkowicz from the sky. When a flash of inspiration crossed his eyes, he had grasped the most crucial point, and a relieved smile appeared on his face. "Tell them to find Blazkowicz, to find my brother." At this moment, Enio preserved the troops, and along with the hope of defeating the demons, entrusted everything to Blazkowicz. Because he knew that in the ever-changing Argent Nur, no one was more trustworthy than Blazkowicz. His most respected father also placed his hopes on Blazkowicz. He finally understood why his father so steadfastly passed the throne to Blazkowicz. After arranging the military affairs and seeing the evacuation signals coming from various units, his anxious mood finally eased slightly. "Sir, please evacuate quickly." The adjutant handed over the anti-gravity motorcycle's ignition key, urging Enio to leave quickly. "Are you insulting me?" Enio snapped, his calm voice filled with anger. "For thousands of years, there have only been Noak people who died in battle, never cowards who abandoned their troops and fled." "I had no intention of insulting you," the adjutant said anxiously, taking off his helmet to reveal a sincere face. "But—" "There are no buts here, adjutant," Enio said, placing a hand on his shoulder, interrupting the adjutant's next words and turning to leave the command room. "Guard." Here, outside the command room, the prince's guard, always awaiting a call, immediately responded to their master. "Let's go," Enio said, lighting his long sword, looking at the fearless warriors before him, and behind him the constantly shrinking front line. He looked up into the distance, where Blazkovich's battlefield lay. He should be finished with the orcs soon. Enio smiled slightly, his gaze sweeping over the defiled demons, finally looking in the direction of his brother and offering a sincere blessing. "My brother, may you slay all your enemies." Many soldiers who had retreated from the front line were leaving in succession after receiving orders. As they passed the prince, they saluted solemnly, "Long live the glory of Noek." Enio nodded in response. Of the 1,000-man front line, only over 600 remained after the continuous onslaught of the demons. All who could evacuate had left, leaving less than 100 to cover the retreat and those too injured to move. The front line gradually contracted, and the sentinels gathered around Enio, using the rock fortress to block the demons. As time passed, the sentinels reached their physical limits. Personnel continuously fell, torn to shreds by the demons. Surrounded by purple hordes of demons, the white-armored sentinels gasped for breath, forming a defensive circle with their backs to each other, weapons pointed outwards. A 6-meter-tall keeper of secrets stood outside the circle, looking down at the humans, an undisguised look of triumph on its enchanting face. Enio was in the encirclement, and the sentinels around him fell one by one. Communications from the evacuating personnel confirmed they were beyond a safe distance. "I told you we would meet on the battlefield." The keeper of secrets that had appeared in his dream stood in an alluring pose, its twisted longsword pointed directly at Enio. And then, Enio's tone remained the same, full of contempt and disdain. "A bunch of twisted beings, defiled bodies, utterly devoid of courage and dignity." "Devoid of courage," Shalaxi's twin-headed sharp blade pointed directly at Enio. "Mortal, your army was scattered by us. You are a loser." "By relying on psychic evil magic," Enio retorted, equally unyielding, his sword also pointed at Shalaxi Helbane. "False courage given by rebirth? You trash, how many rebirths did it take you to get up here?" "I have a gift for you monsters." Enio's gaze swept across the diverse array of demons before him, and a brilliant smile appeared on his face. "You'll love it." From his lower back, concealed by his cloak, he pulled out a cubic object, held it in his hand, and pressed the switch. "Antimatter bomb." Isaac's terrified scream came from behind the horde of demons. A relic of the Golden Age, an antimatter bomb had been triggered. At the moment of matter-antimatter annihilation, 100-meter radius around the blast center was obliterated, leaving a massive circular crater. "Damn it!" A curse suddenly reached Enio's ears. He snapped back to reality. The antimatter bomb in his hand was gone. "If not for the power of the gods, you would have succeeded." A malicious voice came, and following it, he saw a feathered monster within a wide priestly robe, its claw clutching the antimatter bomb, staring at him and cursing incessantly. Isaac's form no longer bore any human characteristics. He resembled a giant blue-feathered bird, with a yellow beak growing on his face and his arms becoming feathered wings. "Time." Enio's face turned pale. He quickly realized that something was wrong with time. Isaac had used psychic power to reverse time. This is impossible. The demons swarmed, pinning down the few remaining warriors. He himself was held down by a keeper of secrets, a hoof planted on his face. Isaac's voice was slow and triumphant. "It was once impossible, but now I have divine blessings, enough to locally reverse time." Several robed priests emerged from behind him, stripped the sentinels of their power armor, and used daggers stained with foul bodily fluids to pierce their skin, carving blasphemous marks upon them. "What are you doing?" Enio struggled but was held down tightly, the keeper of secrets' jewel-encrusted tail wrapped around his mouth. "Let demons possess you. Let you take us to King Noek, to your brother." MMMPH, MMMPH, MMMPH. Enio watched helplessly as magic circles were carved onto the bodies of the sentinels, and then the keeper of secrets' great demon transformed into purple mist and drilled into their bodies. You, the keeper of secrets, leaned in, its finger teasingly tracing his face. I will leave your soul intact, so you can watch helplessly as you commit unforgivable sins. The clang banged. The clash of weapons was incessant. The two combatants on the arena had been fighting for an hour. The aftermath of their battle was horrifying. The materialized ritual arena was deeply gashed by sword light and axe blades, and the sky was torn with fissures. Without the arena's restraint, their battle would become a disaster, no less than natural calamities like earthquakes, tsunamis, or volcanic eruptions. The sentinels retreated far away, no longer paying attention to the battle's progress, resting as they waited for the outcome. The scope of the human-demon duel exceeded their comprehension, surpassing the limits of the material realm. Skarbrand panted, exhaling Mars. An hour of frenzied slaughter, over 1,000,000 full-power attacks, and now a weary soreness seeped from the crevices of his muscles. The power of the demons within him gradually subsided, almost completely depleted. In contrast, the young god opposite him showed no ripple of emotion on his cold face. His chest rose and fell steadily, no sweat seeped from his skin, and not a hint of fatigue was in his eyes. Was his stamina endless? Skarbrand shook his head. Hot sweat poured from the grooves of his muscles, flowing like molten streams onto the ground. For the first time, he doubted his demonic body. He called upon the power of rage again, but what surged forth was exhaustion and a sense of powerlessness. Facing Blazkowicz was like an enraged, flame-forged battering ram crashing against a silent, towering wall built of composure and calm. With each attack, the flames gradually extinguished, the rage dissipated, and the silent wall remained unyielding. Even the twin axes in his hands reigned in their ferocity. The chilling axe blades were no longer bright, conveying a message of fatigue. Throughout countless ages, Skarbrand had never encountered such an opponent. Even under the suppression of the dimensional rift, his strength was further restrained. Now he faced a terrifying existence whose body knew no fatigue, and whose spirit knew no weariness. The bloodthirster wondered if, when the young god ascended to godhood in the future, the endlessly enraged blood god would feel equally exhausted when facing him. Blazkowicz remained silent, his light sword displaying exquisite swordsmanship, constantly clashing with the demon's weapons, relentlessly attacking the demon called Skarbrand. His state remained at its peak, but the weapon in his hand warned him. The fusion battery, used for hundreds of years, was depleted of energy after countless collisions. Both sides tacitly retreated. Skarbrand gasped for air, cherishing the hard-won chance to recover his strength. Blazkowicz tucked the extinguished dimensional light blade at his waist and smoothly caught the spear Harlan threw to him. He strode forward to attack. The demon's decline was evident, strike while he was down. The spear blade lit up. The spear in his hand moved like a dragon, agile as a snake. Dimensional light blades swirled bewilderingly before the demon's eyes, forming a blue ocean that surged towards him. Skarbrand retreated repeatedly, constantly discerning the true spear blade amidst the residual light particles of the light spear, shaking his neck to avoid being speared through the throat. At this moment, he could only parry, completely unable to retaliate. In one moment of retreat, a soreness shot through his waist, and his movement slowed by a fraction of a second, just a fraction. Blazkowicz saw the bloodthirster's opening. The spear moved with his will, and the light blade plunged into the demon's left armpit, lightly flicking to sever his entire arm. Demonic blood splattered. Skarbrand knew he had failed. The bloodthirster within him surged from the arm wound, leaving the material realm. His power rapidly waned. Blazkowicz's attacks came in waves, light blades flashing up and down, piercing bloodied holes in the demon's iron-hard body. The spear appeared and disappeared unpredictably. The rapidly weakening Skarbrand, holding an axe with one hand, staggered backward, his body tilted. Blazkowicz spun around, thrusting the spear from his waist, piercing the demon's right shoulder, paralyzing his right arm. The spear blade passed through his body, its speed undiminished, getting stuck in him. Screech, Scarbrand's cry was shrill. The axe in his right hand smashed to the ground, his body was dragged and spun, his lower half scraped bloody and raw on the arena. HMPH. With a muffled grunt, Blazkovich, who had been silent throughout the duel, leaned on the spear shaft, forcefully pushed to the left, and flung the demon impaled on the spear away. The blood god will hunt you. Scarbrand crashed onto the edge of the arena. He recalled how the blood god had once flung him away like this, letting him fall. He turned his head on the ground, looking at the young god on the other side of the arena, wanting to say something, but a spear pierced his skull. A demon's words are worthless. Blazkovich watched the demon disappear, then looked up at the burning, blood-red sky, his eyes resolute and silent. A silent yet sharp inquiry. He clenched his iron fist, ready, showing no joy of victory, but rather questioning the blood god, asking if it was enough. Hut, 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 hut. Laughter echoed from the void. It was clear the owner of the laugh was very pleased. The burning sky vanished, turning into falling blood rain. Night descended anew, adorned with a brilliant aurora. The blood pool on the ground contracted, disappearing completely, as if it had never existed. As the blood god's ritual ended, the arena's brass and blood-red hues faded, becoming colorless, pale rock, then collapsing into gravel. Blazkovich pulled out the spear that had pinned the demon to the ground, feeling the surge of power within him, yet showing no joy. He looked towards the city of truth, his worry deepening. This was a game of gods, merely a meticulously arranged performance. How are they? Blazkovich gazed into the distance, sensing familiar footsteps approaching, and asked without turning his head. Spirits are high. Harlan knew what Blazkovich wanted to ask. The appearance of a god had shocked the Sentinels' worldview. The Sentinels had always disdained vague beliefs, scoffing at the gods at the end of faith, those virtual idols. Just now a god, or rather an existence as powerful as a god, had truly appeared before their eyes. The impact on traditional thought was akin to dropping a powerful nuclear bomb into the Sentinels' ideological fortress. You're overthinking it. Harlan smiled, amused by Blazkovich's concern. We are materialists, so what if gods exist? The universe is vast and boundless. There will always be existences beyond common sense. His gaze suddenly became serious, and he looked Blazkovich up and down carefully. Like you are also an existence beyond common sense. His words dispelled Blazkovich's worries and lightened his heart considerably. Let's move quickly. Blazkovich's slightly softened expression grew heavy again. I have a bad feeling something might have happened with Enio. Understood. Harlan quickly put on his helmet and ordered the troops via the communication channel to prepare for an immediate night march to the City of Truth. Blazkovich looked at the mess before him, clenching his hand, feeling the power within him, his heart far from calm. After killing Scarbrand, his own power had surged. If he were to fight him again, he was confident he could defeat him within 100 moves. Staring at the departing Sentinels, Blazkovich suddenly felt a fear. If there were powerful beings called gods, would he one day also be called a god? His miraculous abilities, gradually manifesting with age, even allowing him to plunder demonic power, was he perhaps on the path to becoming a god? What exactly was a god? Recalling the blood god, Blazkovich's eyes narrowed. He was not like ordinary people. What he saw was naturally different. Behind that void curtain was a materialized existence of an abstract concept, an aggregated entity radiating eternal rage. A cool breeze swept by, and Blazkovich instinctively shivered. Not because of the cold night, but because he was terrified at the thought that he might one day become such a thing. Trembling, he shook the inexplicable fear from his mind, retrieved the motorcycle that had been blown away by the blood god's ritual from afar, and headed to the next battlefield. Destroy the City of Truth as quickly as possible, and end this gradually twisting war sooner. Blazkowicz did not yet know that what awaited him was the crossroads of fate, a small game orchestrated by the gods. Chapter 39 Destiny. Argentum Palace Council Hall. King Noak's body was hunched, his strong muscles gone. His withered gray skin was like old, dry tree bark, and shriveled blood vessels like tree vines wrapped around his emaciated, tree-like body. The front of his luxurious robe and his legs were stained with residual spittle and snot. The robe enveloped his frail, withered body, and the outlines of his bones were clearly visible. His head hung very low, almost level with the armrest of the throne. His once thick, long hair was now just a few withered strands, sparsely hanging from his bald scalp, signaling the king's weakness and helplessness. The skin on his face was loose and full of wrinkles, and his eye bags sagged long, pulling down his lower eyelids to reveal cloudy whites and dull pupils. "My king." The throne guard knelt on one knee, maintaining the distance from King Noak's position as stipulated when he was lucid. The guard turned his head slightly, unable to bear looking directly at the current king. His voice was as clear as possible, yet careful not to startle him. "Your eldest son has returned." The voice echoed in the empty council hall, but no response came for a long time. "Ugh." After a long while, the corpse-like figure on the throne finally let out a weak gasp. "Who is it?" The simple question seemed to stretch for centuries, a whirring sound squeezed from his throat. If not for the throne guard's keen hearing, an ordinary person would not have been able to make out what he said. His Highness, the guards, and the priest, no one else. The guard spoke clearly, using the most concise language possible to convey all important information. "Cough tilde." Noak let out a cold snort, which turned into a low cough. His body trembled as he salvaged the last shred of sanity from his muddled mind, using all his strength to squeeze out words from his throat. "Have the Queen come to see me. Have Elton Senna go and pick up Blazkowicz." As he spoke, Noak's body arched, beginning to tremble violently, his long fingernails digging into his withered palms. His voice was urgent and pained. "Have Senna bring the teleporter. Get Blazkowicz back as fast as possible." "Your will be done." The throne guard ran out of the council hall. He didn't understand why. Upon returning to the Argentum, the king's body had weakened to such an extent. Only Noak remained in the council hall. He twitched and convulsed on the throne, cloudy tears streaming from his eyes, cursing something while spittle flew from his mouth. After a long while, he stopped. His head hung low, painful tears shattering on the ground. His voice, choked with sobs, gradually became imbued with heart-wrenching pain. "Enia, my dearest son, my eldest son. You will not be alone. I will bring you offerings with victory. Gods, our game will soon have a result." Then he sat back up, closed his cloudy, bloodshot eyes, and remained silent, awaiting fate's final answer. The orders from the throne hall were quickly relayed, and the king's will was carried out. Blazkowicz led the sentinels towards the city of truth, traveling day and night, less than 1,000 kilometers from their destination. "My lord." Blazkowicz sat on the war fortress balcony, his brain working at high speed, calculating various plans to destroy the city of truth. He was disturbed by the orderly, hearing an anxious voice, and suddenly felt a bad premonition. Our scout cavalry encountered friendly forces withdrawing from the blockade. No sooner had the orderly finished speaking than a gust of wind billowed his robe, and the war lord, leaving a trail of afterimages, arrived in the command room. "What's going on?" Blazkowicz's face was grim, his gaze fixed like a torch on the holographic image on the command console, a deep anxiety buried in his voice. "What happened?" A unit of the sentinels in the holographic image had armor covered in scars, and there were some wounded, but they didn't look like a defeated, routed army. "My lord." The sentinels recounted everything that had happened to Blazkowicz. The city of truth's ritual, the constantly regenerating demons, and Enio's order to retreat. Blazkovich's face was ashen, his fists clenched. He was still too late. His chest heaved violently, and he quickly integrated the current situation in his mind, rapidly planning his next move. Orders flowed from his mouth, distributed by the orderly. Send out cavalry to search for and gather friendly forces, scout cavalry to investigate the City of Truth, and prepare a fast-moving unit to rescue Neo. The directives were quickly issued, and the war machine began to operate according to Blazkovich's commands, with all units moving as ordered. I suggest you cancel that last order. A clear, urgent voice entered the command room, rudely interrupting the commanding warlord. An unexpected person appeared at the entrance of the War Fortress command room, holding a helmet. Elton Senna, Blazkovich frowned deeply. He couldn't imagine why Senna would be here. Elton Senna, racing master, Lord of the Sentinels Cavalry, throne messenger, one of King Noak's most trusted individuals, the fastest man in Argent Nur. He wore a specialized pressure-resistant power armor. His face was stern, his eyes sharp, his brown hair slicked back, and he carried a giant lance. His appearance made Blazkovich's heart sink. Had the Argentum been attacked? Put away your conjectures. The Argentum is safe and sound. Senna grabbed a bottle of water and drank it all, letting out a long breath. Your father, King Noak, sent me to bring you back. Elton Senna. Harlan emerged from the rest cabin, saw the familiar figure, and excitedly jogged over, wrapping an arm around the throne messenger's shoulders and pulling him into a hug. Their armors clanged loudly during the vigorous collision. Why are you here? The racing master and the champion swordsman were close friends, bound by life and death. To pick up your master, Senna punched Harlan's chest, joy evident on his face. Did something happen to the Argentum? Harlan's excited expression changed, and he immediately became alert. The master and servant had almost identical reactions. Senna's stern face wore a smile. The Argentum is safe and sound. I came on the throne's orders. As for why, Senna shook his head. Other than the order to bring Blazkovich back, there were no other instructions. I don't know either. I will act according to orders. Blazkovich's expression was solemn. He knew his father wouldn't act without reason. Unless it was an extreme emergency, he would never recall him at such a critical moment. Senna nodded in satisfaction. His mission had gone smoothly, and a slight smile appeared on his face as he reminded him, You have 3 minutes to arrange your army. Unit assemble. The command to assemble and encamp in place was left unspoken. After some thought, Blazkovich changed his orders. All units are to be broken down into 1,000-man teams, enter concealed areas to lie in wait, and await further orders. Do not be too far apart from each other, and establish mutually supporting strongholds. The current City of Truth was far more bizarre than before. If the Sentinels gathered together, perhaps a single super-large psionic spell could cause heavy losses to their side. Let's go. Having arranged everything, Blazkovich walked towards Senna, who was waiting at the entrance preparing to follow him. No need to walk, I brought a teleporter. Senna pointed to a corner of the fortress, where several forging technicians were assembling equipment. Blazkovich's pupils constricted slightly upon seeing it, making him realize even more that the situation in the Argentum was grim, even bringing out the precious long-distance relic, the fixed-point teleporter. The fixed-point teleporter was a relic from the Golden Age, used for crossing continents on a planet. It was a convenient teleporter. It was said to have been created by an Argent Nur engineer who wanted to see his wife and daughter as quickly as possible during his leisure time. The specific principles have been lost, but its operation is very simple. By setting up teleporters at the 2 locations, fast point-to-point teleportation can be achieved between the 2 machines. Ready, having set up the teleporter, the forging technicians respectfully stepped aside. Let's go. Harlan was already waiting by the teleporter. Wherever Blazkovich went, he would follow. Senna waved to them, indicating he would not be teleporting with them. His message delivered and mission successfully completed. The racing master preferred driving his anti-gravity motorcycle and enjoying the adrenaline rush of extreme speed over the intangible experience of teleportation. Queen Elise's emerald eyes sparkled with tears as she helped King Noak into new clothes. It had been half a year since King Noak had summoned her, and her husband's current appearance was a stark contrast to the spirited man he had been a year ago. She did not understand, nor did she wish to delve into it. Men's affairs always had their reasons, and they would sacrifice everything for their ideals without hesitation. Yet seeing King Noak's frail body stung her eyes and pained her heart, and her tears fell incessantly to the ground. Elise straightened King Noak's crown, giving the monarch his final dignity, and her hands brushed over his withered face as she asked heartbrokenly, "This appearance of yours, no different from a dead man, isn't simple fatigue. What exactly are you resisting?" King Noak's withered, lifeless eyes looked at his still beautiful wife, and he forced a faint smile. To Elise's surprise, Noak's branch-like hand rose and gently clasped hers, their bony fingers intertwining. "Elise," Noak whispered, his voice slow and weak as it was squeezed from his throat. He was like a man walking in darkness, grasping at the last glimmer of light. Elise Klaus Noak. Amidst the torment of the gods, he was at his wit's end. Only his obsession, the thought of protecting everything, sustained his body. His wife, still beautiful before him, proved he had succeeded in focusing the gods' attention on one person. Hearing her husband's dreamlike call, Elise's heart shattered into countless pieces. She bit her lip, weeping silently, half sitting on the throne's armrest, tightly grasping Noak's hand and cradling his head against her shoulder. "Enio is back. He can bear some of this for you. You can rest now." "Enio." Noak's body trembled. Hearing his son's name, he seemed to clear his head considerably, and turbid tears flowed from his eyes. "He is not Enio. That thing is not your child." Elise's body stiffened abruptly, accompanied by a forcefully suppressed tremor. She knew her son was dead. Kissing her husband's head, which rested on her shoulder, she struggled to hold back the bitter sorrow in her heart, preventing her tears from overflowing. She never doubted her husband's words. Even though Noak's mind was tormented and his moments of clarity were few, she still deeply trusted all of his judgments. "Help me up, my queens." King Noak struggled, pressing his arms against the throne to support his body. He was too weak to stand without assistance. In this final moment, the fate of the gods, the fate of the Novik family, and the fate of Argent Nur were about to converge here. Fate awaited humanity's challenge. The gods wished to manipulate everything to achieve their desired outcome. "My queen, will you accompany me to the throne hall? Your king will be there to issue his final challenge to the ultimate killer of your son." Noak's standing figure trembled, unable even to support his own body, yet his declaration was as heroic and spirited as ever. "Noak," Elise supported her husband's tottering body, the light in her emerald eyes piercing as she questioned him. "Tell me, will you defeat the enemy?" Her voice was still gentle, yet tinged with a hint of hatred. The gentle and kind queen had never wished for King Noak's victory as much as she did now. "We will be victorious." Noak stroked Elise's golden hair as gently as before. He could not hide the truth from his wife. "But we will not see the moment of victory. You and I are both cornerstones of that victory." Noak's words were very direct. He would achieve victory. "Then I am relieved." Elise's tears had dried. The bloodshot whites of her eyes, set against her green pupils, resembled burning emeralds. "You will surely bring victory." The understanding between husband and wife told her that everything would be revealed in the throne hall, and the outcome decided there. And everything, including her life, was a cornerstone of that victory. "Let's go, my king." They stood tall, chests out, hands clasped together. Amidst the escort of the throne's guards, they passed through the palace corridor towards the throne hall. Inside the throne hall, Isaac and Enio also waited. The gods' gazes converged here, destinies intertwined here, and the outcome of the battle between humans and gods would be decided here. Though it was bright, sunny noon, the throne hall was shrouded in darkness, a chilling cold seeping into one's very bones. When Queen Elise appeared, supporting King Noak, all eyes focused on them. Noak lowered his head and whispered in Elise's ear, "Watch my glorious victory from the side." "Your condition seems quite poor." Isaac was still as before, with a pale, gaunt face and an elegant, composed demeanor. Only his tone held a hint of disdain, his voice drawn out. "Great King Noak." "I am, of course, very well." Noak sat on the throne, though he needed his arms to support himself upright, his voice slow and weak, his imposing aura undiminished. Still a man who can wield a weapon, not a dog kneeling on the ground. Isaac's expression flickered, then he smiled with resignation. He did not wish to debate further. Becoming a servant of the gods was something many believers yearned for but could not attain. Just as Noak despised his faith, Isaac similarly scorned the faithless. The sentinels, foolishly believing in themselves, were unworthy of the gods' favor, unworthy of kneeling at the gods' feet to hear their teachings. "Father, mother." Enio bowed, his voice and appearance unchanged, and his gestures were even more elegant and beautiful. No one on the royal dais responded to him. King Noak's turbid eyes were filled with sorrow, and Elise turned her head, unable to look at her son. From the moment she saw Enio, Elise was certain that the person standing there, with the same voice, face, and appearance as her son, was no longer the son she had raised word by word. Enio was not angered. He bowed again and stood to the side, a strange smile on his face. Deep within, a captive soul was in great pain. The keeper of secrets fully savored that regret and pain. It was reaching its peak. "Is this all the people there are?" Noak's gaze swept across the throne hall. 5 sentinels brought back by Enio, and 9 priests including Isaac, a total of 15 people. "Hes tilde hei. Isaac's throat emitted a broken, sharp laugh, like a madman confident of victory, acting brazenly before the king, his gaze sweeping over the guards in the throne hall. "Enough! Everything is going according to plan." "I don't think it's enough." King Noak sneered. "Senna went to pick him up. The teleportation device will bring Blazkowicz back soon." Everyone present knew of Blazkowicz's power. He was an unrivaled existence, a strong individual who could instantly turn the tide of battle. The blood god had cast his heroic fighting spirit into the warp, and even demons were moved by his might. Ha tilde. Isaac laughed even more unrestrainedly. Everything was progressing according to the Lord of Change's plan. Everything was after the plan. "Kill them." At the command of the Tzinch cultist, the 5 sentinels, possessed by keepers of secrets, suddenly attacked the throne guards. The throne guards' attention was on the priests and their retinue, and they had no idea that the sentinels would attack them. In the guards' astonished eyes, at the priest's command, their former comrades erupted with ghostly speed, their dimensional light blades piercing their bodies without hesitation. The guards in the throne hall were killed. 2 demon-possessed soldiers, their steel boots treading through blood, rushed up the royal dais. Light blades were held against the king and queen's throats, controlling them with the fastest speed. "He is exactly who I was waiting for." Isaac shrieked, as if venting like a bird's long cry. At this moment his composure and elegance vanished. He pulled up his robes and rushed to the throne in a few strides, his eyes filled with immense exhilaration. "Please release the queen, she poses no threat," Isaac said to the possessed warrior, telling the demon to lower its spear. Looking at Noak, his face twisted, growing short blue feathers, his entire face immersed in fanaticism. His eyes became round bird's eyes, his fingers mutated into eagle claws which he pressed against Noak's face, asking triumphantly, "You thought you could win. Every one of your thoughts, every flicker of your mind, is completely exposed to the gods' gaze. Your self-proclaimed game is merely a game where the gods want you to see hope, then extinguish it." At this moment, Isaac was no longer human. no longer the elegant high priest, but a monstrous bird covered in shimmering blue feathers. "Throne guards, please withdraw." Sharp, pointed claws pressed against Noak's temple, and human words came from its beak, threatening the guards rushing into the hall. "Get out." King Noak slowly spoke, telling the guards to retreat to avoid unnecessary casualties. "You're waiting for Blazkovich to save you, waiting for him to make the right choice." Watching the guards exit the throne hall, having completely taken control of the situation, Isaac's slender neck swallowed excitedly. In a bird-like gurgle, he spoke of future plans and Noak's failure. You are truly foolish, Noak. You surrounded him with love, embraced him with love, but you also used love to create his weakness. Using you and Elise as leverage, he will surely submit to the gods because he deeply loves you." Isaac released Noak, his robes trailing behind him, and slowly walked down the steps. He turned to look at the man who had the courage to play against the gods, a different kind of pity in his eyes. "The gamble you thought you were playing, the gods used you as the stake. Keep a close eye on him. This man is very dangerous." The demon-possessed soldier nodded heavily. He knew the gods' plan, and now only the final step remained for success. Even a powerful keeper of secrets would not dare to act recklessly at such a critical juncture. His hand gripped the long spear, the light blade pressed against the human's neck, preventing any rash moves. Isaac's brow furrowed, then smoothed out. He disliked this. The tense, confrontational atmosphere was not elegant at all. He could use psionic spells or other means to control King Noak, who was now too weak to lift a sword. But Noak possessed a mysterious artifact, capable of even blocking the gods' gazes, with strong anti-psionic capabilities. Violent methods were the most direct, most impactful, and most intimidating. The gods, in Noak's mind, monitored every flicker of his thoughts. King Noak was merely a pathetic wretch now. He wouldn't last much longer. He urged Blazkovich to return quickly to save him, hoping his son wouldn't disappoint him. Everything was under control, everything was according to plan. Isaac's joy at this moment surged irrepressibly from within. He paid no mind to the watchful guards outside the throne hall, instead looking up at the magnificent dome. The dome was carved with the Milky Way, symbolizing the Argent Nur people's never-forgotten desire to return to the stars. There were also some unpleasant things that made Isaac's feathered brow furrow. He disliked a corner of the painting, an inconspicuous corner within the grand mural. In the chaos after the mechanoids blockaded the planet, the original Sentinels formed an alliance, re-established a new order, and declared war on all of Argent Nur. Among those massacred mutants and psionic aberrants purged by the Sentinels, they constituted half of the planet's total population at the time. The last psionic group was driven below the third orbital pillar, and the Sentinels did not pursue them further. The glorious history of the Sentinels was the suffering history of the City of Truth. A ball of blue flame ignited on Isaac's fingertip. He flicked it, setting the dome alight, eliminating the disharmony in the painting. On this important day, at the moment when destiny was about to arrive, a priest of the City of Truth was wantonly shaming the honor of warriors in the throne hall of the Argentum. Why? With the help of the true gods, Isaac finally stood in the throne hall of the Argentum and asked the age-old question. The Novik family has never been merciful. Why did you abandon the pursuit of psionics? This question had been festering in the hearts of the priests of the City of Truth for 1,000 years. Noak tilted his head back, moving his neck away from the light blade, and after a long period of recollection, slowly said, "My ancestors realized the danger of psionics, cleansing all psionics, but they also saw the necessity of psionics. If we encounter enemies that require psionics to fight, you will be our last hope. In your mage tower, there should be a leather agreement tucked within the pages of a book. It's a secret agreement signed jointly by the first priest of the City of Truth and my ancestor." As he spoke, he suddenly paused, his cloudy eyes looking at Isaac. I just never imagined that the power meant to fight evil would prematurely side with evil. Noak's eyes held pity as he looked at the bird-like creature dressed in a magnificent priestly robe. He was merely a pitiful fool toyed with by the gods. You have also betrayed the original intention of the priests. They wanted to use the long passage of time to eliminate our hatred, hoping we could stand together against evil. His weak voice continued to narrate. Isaac gradually stood there stunned, the mutations on his body receding as he returned to human form. You are not skilled enough, you cannot understand the true meaning of the priests, and instead, you worship deities and have been corrupted by the forces of darkness. No, no, you won't shake my resolve. Isaac's pale face flushed with color, and flames of anger burst from his eyes. Our thousands of years of faith, we believe in the gods for revenge. Cough, tilde, thousands of years of believing in gods. Noak coughed, looking at the pitiful man below. Then why did only you receive a response from the gods? These words were like a thunderbolt piercing Isaac's mind, making him dizzy and his pale face even paler, his body swaying for a moment. No, I don't believe it. Isaac's face was filled with horror, and he retreated step by step until he hit the stone pillar behind him, as if finding support. You won't shake my resolve. He remembered his teacher's last words on his deathbed. Those who believe in gods will ultimately have nothing. He had always thought that was his teacher's mockery of the Sentinels, a disdain for those who did not believe in truth. He had never thought it was a warning to himself. In King Noak's mind, the message transmitted by the true gods confirmed that he was not lying. Isaac could even feel, behind the veil of reality, the Lord of Change's pleasant mood, an excitement of a prank being revealed. The gods are testing the devotion of their followers. They want to see if, after the truth is revealed, the followers can withstand the test. The priest muttered to himself, using words to strengthen his inner resolve, suppressing his doubts about the gods. To prove his devotion. He knelt again, bowing his head to the ground 9 times, his tone even more resolute. I still offer my body and mind, prostrating myself without any regret. I have nothing left, only faith in the true gods. Inside the throne hall, Isaac's comical performance was like an intermission play arranged by the gods, entertaining them during the tedious wait for the main show. Traveler's Hall. The fixed teleportation device flickered with lightning, and after a dazzling white flash, Blazkowicz and Harlan appeared from the light of the teleportation. Blazkowicz opened his eyes, confirming he was back in the Argentum. A guard wearing white power armor, with the blue Novik family crest on his shoulder pads and a blue cape, hurried to meet him. My lord, I have been waiting for you for a long time. Although his facial expression was not visible, his hurried tone and restless movements made him seem very anxious. Captain, let's talk as we walk. Blazkowicz led the way to the throne hall. The royal decree he received stated that the first thing he should do upon returning was to go to the throne hall to see his father. Isaac and several traitorous guards, they have kidnapped the queen and the royal consort and are waiting for you in the throne hall. The captain of the royal guard spoke quickly, gnashing his teeth as he did so. For thousands of years, no sentinels had betrayed the Novik family. He wished he could kill the traitors immediately to wash away the shame of the sentinels. Upon hearing this, Blazkowicz exchanged a glance with Harlan, and their pace quickened involuntarily. The development of the situation had gradually veered towards the unknown, and the dense fog would only be dispelled in the throne hall. Where is Enio? The Lord is also in the throne hall. The guard captain deliberated. He was currently unsure what exactly was happening with the first prince. Rebellion in the Argentum was meaningless. The Sentinels was loyal to King Noak. Without a king's abdication or designation, usurpers had no legitimacy. The Sentinels would only charge forward, dismembering the usurpers to avenge their loyal king. The group strode swiftly, taking a fast vehicle to the throne hall. No one could manage the situation now. Where is Flano Novik? Harlan asked in confusion in the car. At such a critical moment, the second prince was nowhere to be found. "I don't know." The guard captain shook his head, equally puzzled. "Only King Noak knows the second prince's whereabouts." A few minutes later, Blazkovich, accommodating the speed of the other two, finally arrived in front of the throne hall. "Don't make any rash moves." Isaac wiped away the blood from his forehead, his wound already healed. He felt the tremor in Noak's thoughts and issued a sharp warning. Inside the throne hall, the sentinels possessed by the Keeper of Secrets pressed the light blade in his hand even closer to Noak's neck. Because Blazkovich's combat power was too strong, they had to make him wary. The invisible chains forged by the love between King Noak and Queen Elise were stronger than any steel, enough to suppress Blazkovich's power. It seemed everything was decided. Blazkovich was like a butterfly caught in a spider's web, and the gods awaited his surrender. The moment Blazkovich's figure appeared at the throne hall's door, all eyes, human and demonic, were drawn to that tall figure. The Keeper of Secrets' great demon was fully focused, watching his every tiny movement, not daring to shift his attention. In such a tense moment, time seemed to slow down considerably because of that man's appearance. Blazkovich's vision was blocked by the door. The first person to appear in his line of sight was Elise, safe and sound. This made him breathe a sigh of relief. As his gaze gradually approached the throne, Blazkovich suddenly heard a sharp shriek. "No!" Chapter 40 Death. Before Blazkovich's steel boots could even make a sound, a roar filled with infinite surprise and fear echoed through the throne hall. Isaac, who was monitoring King Noak's thoughts, sensed that terrifying idea. He was terrified, deeply afraid of the horrible idea that King Noak was about to put into action. The man sitting on the throne, with a blade of light at his throat, smiled with relief. The moment the demon's attention shifted to Blazkovich, he made a decisive move without hesitation. His body, decaying like a withered tree, erupted with a surge of power, a power that had accumulated for a long time, a power he was ready to unleash for the idea that had just appeared in his mind. Noak didn't see his son's full figure, only half of his majestic, powerful, and defiant posture, and he smiled with relief. He finally saw that his son possessed the strength to resist the gods and to command the sentinels. Using his last reserves of strength, before Blazkovich could fully comprehend, Noak's neck was torn open, and dark red, defiled blood gushed from the smooth wound. The sentinels possessed by the demon recoiled his blade of light in horror, but saw Noak smiling at him. "Thank you." The king's lips moved, silently expressing his gratitude, thanking the demon for helping him complete his final act. The demon frantically withdrew his spear. Blood sprayed from Noak's artery, like scattering crimson diamonds, shimmering with an eternal, crystalline brilliance. Isaac choked. This scene terrified him so much that he assumed his half-human, half-demon form. In his panic, he silently chanted a spell. He wanted to reverse time again, just as he had done with Enio, to prevent this horrifying scene. The Lord of Change responded to him. Before the incantation was even finished, the magic of time reversal had already been activated. The blood, still suspended in the air, those dust motes within the radiance, began to retreat along their original paths. The light of life returned, flowing back into King Noak's gradually dying body. Isaac shed tears, tears of joy at having salvaged everything. But in his joy, he subconsciously overlooked one person, the man who appeared at the entrance of the throne hall, the focus of all eyes. Blazkovich's mind was considering the possibility of negotiation. The city of truth taking hostages was nothing more than an attempt to bargain. Seeing Elise unharmed, he felt a slight relaxation. As his gaze gradually moved past the obstacles, he saw a sight that brought his extraordinary mind to a halt. A large hand named Terror pierced Blazkovich's tough, bullet-resistant body and seized his heart. He saw his beloved father, his throat cut by the traitor's blade. "No!" A roar tore through the air. a deafening cry of grief and indignation, yet it was only astonishment, eyes wide, watching this horrifying scene unfold unstoppably. Blazkowicz felt a sense of helplessness. His lightning-fast brain had crashed, and the power surging within his extraordinary body could not prevent the terrible images his eyes were seeing. Like a mortal, excessive sorrow drove his instincts. He instinctively rushed towards the throne, wanting to support his father's slowly falling body. Time began to flow backward. Before Isaac could feel a sense of relief, a tall figure burst into the throne hall. He was so unstoppable that, to the priest's horrified expressions, he shattered the time spell with a single step, making everything irreversible. Blazkowicz was too powerful. As one of the few powerful entities in the universe, his timeline could not be shaken, nor easily reversed. Even if a chaos god personally intervened, it would be difficult to hastily reverse the linear flow of reality's time, to make time constantly rewind until they achieved their desired outcome. Once a choice was made, it could never be changed. Especially for powerful entities, their choices influence the course of history, affecting the destinies of too many people, leaving no room for regret. "It's over." Isaac despairingly closed his eyes. The tears welling from his eyes were no longer joyful, only endless regret remained. The moment Blazkowicz stepped into the throne hall, past history was etched, remaining in the eternal memory of the universe until the moment of its entropy. It could not be erased, could not be reversed. Behind the veil of reality, in the warp, Tzinch's body transformed into countless arms, celebrating the occurrence of a massive change. Blazkowicz's destiny had changed, not following the path planned by the gods. Instead, due to a mortal's schemes, he embarked on a different path. He gesticulated wildly, reveling in change, in impermanence, in the constant yet inconstant nature of destiny. The scene before them unfolded within a single second, yet it felt as if centuries had passed. In this insignificant, unreal second in the universe, the fate of the real universe underwent countless changes. Those superfluous destinies, waiting for Blazkowicz to choose, completely vanished with King Noak's death, and destiny was brought to a conclusion. In the instant of his death, King Noak pruned the wrongly grown branches from the tree of destiny for his son. No! When everyone in the throne hall heard Blazkowicz's grief-stricken roar. That intensely painful roar even pierced the essence of the Keeper of Secrets' great demon, forcing them to manifest their unclean demonic bodies from within the Sentinel's forms. Demons! The moment the demonic entities appeared, his sorrow and indignation found a target. The demons had killed his father. Blazkowicz's killing intent surged from his grief, taking on a tangible form, like countless sharp blades in space, locking down all of the demon's movements. His desperate movements were so fast that he appeared before his enemies before his mind could even register it. Sharash Helbane materialized, and before it could fully steady itself, an iron fist smashed into its head, knocking off its ram's horn crown along with it. The demonic weapon in its hand was snatched away. A shield, imbued with savage power, bisected a Keeper of Secrets, and a twin-bladed sword pierced a Slaanesh great demon. Trailing afterimages, the Slaanesh great demon, proud of its speed, couldn't even clearly see the afterimages before being kicked into fragments and sent back to the warp. Before his father's blood could even touch the ground, and while the demonic soldier was still stunned, Blazkowicz's unstoppable fist arrived, carrying with it the intent to kill. The Sentinel's power armor was like paper before his absolute strength. A punch to its chest shattered the power armor, and the body inside, along with the armor fragments, was violently forced out through its back. The Keeper of Secrets' great demon's dying gaze was filled with extreme astonishment. It couldn't understand why the young god was so powerful and it was so fragile. Even without the existence of the warp, the ritual array inscribed on its body should have given it some power to resist. By the time the humans and demons in the throne hall reacted, a massacre had concluded, and Blazkowicz came to his father's side. "Father," as the surrounding demons returned to the warp, Enio's expression changed, and he cried out, rushing towards the throne. Harlan, in the brief moment Blazkowicz rushed to the throne, had a clear view of the situation in the throne hall. He should have rushed to protect Queen Elise, but a strong physical instinct told him that Blazkowicz's side was where he needed to be. "Father," kneeling on one knee before the throne, those large hands that had slain great demons as easily as chickens trembled helplessly, not knowing where to place themselves. His voice was choked with sobs, his tiger-like eyes filled with mist. Finally, his trembling hand covered his father's neck, trying to staunch the blood that seeped through his fingers, carrying life along with it. One hand supported the frail body, preventing him from falling from the throne. In the inevitable moment of death, King Noak's body relaxed instead. He felt incredibly weak, yet so real. In his final moments, the gods departed from his mind, granting a father the right to bid farewell to his son. "I am proud of you." His lips moved, his severed throat unable to produce sound, but he smiled and mouthed a simple farewell before peacefully closing his eyes. Blazkowicz's body trembled violently, his mind a blank. It felt like a long time before he realized the irreversible fact of his father's death. "No, no." His palms pressed harder, wanting to force the gushing blood and vitality back into the body, but it was futile. For the first time, Blazkowicz felt a profound helplessness. The power capable of challenging the gods could not save a mortal's life. His eyes could not hold back the torrent of tears, and painful tears streamed down his face as Blazkowicz looked at his father. He hadn't seen his son achieve great deeds, hadn't seen the people of Argent Nur leave Argent Nur, and the 1,000-year-old ideal he carried had yet to be realized. Blazkowicz's grief was uncontrollable, his body trembled, and his angry eyes were bloodshot. Boom! Thunder rumbled in the clear sky, and blood-red lightning flashed out of nowhere. The excessive grief of a powerful entity had forcibly torn open the barrier between reality and the warp, drawing a resonance from the sea of souls. Blazkowicz picked up his father only to find his body terrifyingly light. His bloodshot eyes turned to Isaac, and he gritted his teeth, saying, "I'll slaughter." Before he could finish speaking, Blazkowicz felt a sense of weakness in his body. He looked down and saw a dagger plunged into his waist. Looking back, his elder brother withdrew his arm. His familiar face was a mix of joy and sorrow. Half his face showed an eerie excitement and pleasure, while the other half was a twisted, distorted expression of regret and pain. A silver rune dagger, adorned with blue magic lines and inlaid with red, purple, and green gems, was plunged into Blazkowicz's back from his lower waist. His brother, whom he had never guarded against, delivered the most insidious strike. When King Noak was killed, the Keeper of Secrets, possessing Enio, used a sorrowful father and the original owner's soul aura to deceive the anxious Blazkowicz. At the crucial moment, it used the divine artifact bestowed by the four gods to stab Blazkowicz in the lower back. The rune dagger vanished, an entity condensed from the pure malice of the four gods, carrying the concepts they imbued and surged into Blazkowicz's body. His murderous face froze in bewilderment, his eyes wide in surprise as if questioning, "Why my brother?" The priests joined forces to erect a psionic barrier, blocking the throne hall guards from entering, buying time. Seeing the Keeper of Secrets' successful sneak attack, Isaac suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. The plot arranged by the Lord of Change should not have unfolded this way. King Noak should have lived and continued to live. He and Queen Elise were the strongest chains, meant to bind Blazkowicz with their love and bring him back to the city of truth. Noak's perfectly timed performance had completely transformed Blazkowicz's previously unknown attitude towards the four gods into hatred. Fortunately, the Keeper of Secrets possessing Enio succeeded. The rune dagger created by the four gods in its hand helped the demon maintain its form amidst Blazkowicz's roar, and Eneo's soul helped the demon evade detection, striking Blazkowicz at the critical moment. The divine artifact, personally forged by the four gods, would plunge Blazkowicz's body into a weakened state, making it easier for the psionic teleportation ritual to take him away. As long as he returned to the City of Truth, there was still a chance to salvage everything. Isaac stood in place, chanting magic spells with the priests, preparing for long-distance teleportation. The throne hall was very unsafe. The guards outside would quickly breach the barrier, so they had to leave quickly. Harlan and the guards were being held back by the Keeper of Secrets, and the guards needed to rescue the Queen, which would buy enough time. The four gods ritual would continuously corrupt him, using endless time to wear down Blazkowicz until he submitted to their feet. Blazkowicz stared in shock at Eneo's twisted face, a mix of sorrow and pain, yet tinged with a strange pleasure, forming a bizarre half-crying, half-smiling expression. When the silver rune dagger pierced his body, it transformed into a mottled mercury, flowing deep into his body through the wound. An extreme sense of weakness came over him. Blazkowicz knelt on one knee to avoid falling, his remaining strength insufficient even to hold his frail father in his arms. An overwhelming sense of weakness swept through his entire body. Although the four gods could not shake Blazkowicz's will, they were eroding his flesh through the divine artifact. "Harm not my lord." With a furious roar, Harlan, holding his spear, forced back Eneo's hand, reaching for Blazkowicz, the glowing blade pointing directly at the traitor, his face filled only with scorn and killing intent. Blazkowicz's mind was ringing. The world in his eyes began to spin. Alarms blared from all over his body, and all his functions began to disorder. He could clearly feel a strong magical curse weakening him, and two different viruses had entered his body. The toxins marched through his blood vessels like 10,000 ants, every nerve screaming sharp warnings. Every cell in his body was resisting a powerful, devouring virus, and various immune systems were fighting the virus at a microscopic level. There was also another type of toxin that began to paralyze his nervous system, disrupting his various senses, bringing infinite fatigue and sensory lag. Gasping for breath, Blazkowicz tried to expel the discomforts, and the viruses and immune systems in his body were evolving. The two sides seemed to be engaged in a tug-of-war within his body, attacking fiercely, neither able to eliminate the other. Along with the confusion of his reason and bodily functions, an infinite rage surged up, destroying the dam built by his sanity. Blazkowicz knew it was fake. It was the blood god attempting to control his anger and seize his soul. In a flash, the situation in the throne hall reversed again. Blazkowicz temporarily lost his ability to resist, and the priests chanted spells to erect a psionic barrier, blocking the throne guards from entering. Before the psionic barrier rose, only two people followed Blazkowicz into the throne hall. Harlan's spear thrust out, parrying Eneo's defiled arm, the flashing spear phantom building an unbreakable wall between the two. No one could approach Blazkowicz before he fell. The throne guard captain charged towards the queen, his guard halberd incomparably domineering. His full wrath needed an outlet. Shameful traitors. Under the very noses of the throne guards, they had abducted members of the royal family and killed the king they protected. "Let her go, scum." The guard captain's roar was like thunder, his cloak swirling behind him, carrying a furious rage as he charged towards the queen, whom a priest was about to grab. Elise stood there, numb with grief, not noticing the priest approaching from behind her. From her husband's lips, she learned of her eldest son's death, and then watched her husband die before her eyes. The monster manipulating Eneo's body had wounded her youngest son, and the tragedy of brother fighting brother unfolded before the throne. This series of painful shocks made the strong woman totter, standing there in a daze. Her emerald eyes were clouded with ash, her once elegantly tied long hair falling over her shoulders, as if all vitality had been drained from her in an instant. She wore a long blue dress, her pale face numb from excessive grief. She was like a lone boat in a storm, ready to be swallowed by the surging waves of emotion at any moment. The guard captain's roar made Elise's body tremble slightly, awakening her from her grief. After understanding the situation on the field, she made her judgment. The queen saw the captain charging towards her, shook her head gently at him, and pointed a finger at Blazkovich, who was propping himself up with his hands, trying to stand again. "Go help him." Elise didn't speak, but used simple lip-reading to order the throne guard to save her son. HMPH. With another muffled roar, the guard captain, having received his orders, did not hesitate, faithfully executing the queen's command. The restraint technique of sudden breaking instantly erupted, blood mist bursting from the armor's seams. His body completed a 90-degree right turn in a straight charge, swinging his halberd to support the champion's swordsman. Harlan's spear shaft pressed against his left arm, the glowing blade pointing directly at Enio, without the slightest concession. "Imposter, face me." The champion swordsman's attacks were fast and fierce, devoid of fancy techniques, all stemming from a powerful inner intuition. The spear's thrusts repeatedly struck the Keeper of Secrets' great demon's critical vital points, preventing it from getting close to Blazkovich. The Keeper of Secrets, possessing Enio, felt a disharmony in its body at this critical moment, which required its full concentration. The original owner of this body, a sealed soul carrying pain and sorrow, was constantly assailing the inner lock, attempting to regain control of the body. Facing the white-armored warrior before it, the Keeper of Secrets' great demon felt a pressure. It was surprised. Even without the support of a sorcerer's ritual, it shouldn't be so weak as to be suppressed by a mortal warrior. Its practiced techniques began to show countless flaws, forcing it to retreat repeatedly, gradually moving away from Blazkovich. However, it was not worried. The priest's ritual was about to take shape, and the combined psionic teleportation magic would transport everything here to the City of Truth. This way, the four gods would still be executed, and taking Blazkovich was the primary objective. Harlan was equally anxious. He repeatedly forced back the demon disguised as Enio, but couldn't defeat it head-on, while the magic ritual outlined on the floor became increasingly clear. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Blazkovich's skin color constantly changing, resisting the toxins in his body and spitting out black blood. Harlan felt like cursing. If he had killed the priests earlier, they wouldn't be in such a passive situation now. Although he thought this, Harlan also understood. Blazkovich couldn't have known that his brother was a demon in disguise, and that it would deliver a critical blow that affected the battle. "Go." Just as he was anxious, a booming roar came from behind, and at the most critical moment the guard captain arrived. With a tearing whoosh through the air, a great halberd was thrown by the captain, piercing through a priest with immense force and pinning him to the ground. The psionic barrier, due to the loss of personnel, showed a momentary flaw, swaying unstably. Isaac dared not act rashly. The consequences of stopping the spell were even more dire. They would be besieged by the sentinels. The guard captain's steps did not falter as he charged towards the royal traitor. He was prepared for sacrifice. Harlan seized the fleeting opportunity. He swept his long spear, forcing Enio back, then bent down, entrusting his back to the guard captain, and grabbed Blazkovich's waist buckle. "Shameful traitor, await our vengeance." The guard captain did not activate his protective force field, allowing a longsword to pierce his body, and in the traitor's shocked eyes, his power armor went to full output. Clutching Enio tightly, "Up!" Harlan exerted force abruptly, the power armor's servo motors whirring, and he lifted Blazkovich by his waist belt, throwing him out of the magic circle's range. The throne guards waiting outside the psionic magic circle carried Blazkovich away quickly. Taking one last look at Queen Elise in the distance, Harlan raised his hand to his chest, showing the highest respect to the queen. He leaped through the gap, jumping out of the psionic magic circle, and coldly looked at the terrified and unwilling Isaac, raising his middle finger. "Screw you, sorcerer." As the light from the ground rose, flashing with psionic lightning, everything in the throne hall vanished. King Noak's corpse, Queen Elise, and all the traders and priests were gone. Harlan took off his helmet and slumped to the ground, breathing deeply the air of the Argentum. Everything happened too fast. In less than 5 seconds, he had made too many choices and endured immense psychological pressure. Chapter 41 Race. Blazkowicz listened quietly. Although the fire of revenge burned fiercely within him, he still listened to the elder recount the universe's past. He was eager for revenge, but his warrior's education taught him one truth. To defeat an enemy, you must first understand them. Gods, demons, these conceptual beings were mysterious and evil. They extended their claws towards Argent Nur, committing unforgivable sins. Prima lay on the bed, narrating the origin of the warp's current pattern. The intersection of the Necron and the Elder, a short-lived race's envy of a long-lived one, eventually escalated into the spark of a galaxy-spanning war. Jealousy. The reason for the war was so absurd. The Necron used jealousy to eliminate internal conflicts, making the immortal Elder their enemy. The terrible war between the two races fully erupted. The Elder, guiding the power of the warp, became invincible. Utilizing the ultra-high-speed network, the webway, they drove the Necron back, forcing them to retreat to their homeworld. The Necrons' defeat was inevitable, but they discovered the star gods, the gods of the material universe. Under the star gods' deception, the entire Necron race's souls were devoured by the star gods, giving birth to the terrifying, soulless machines, the Necron. The star gods led the Necron to breach the webway. The deathless, lifeless Necron army completely defeated the Elder. That war lasted a very long time. Prima's voice was peaceful and benevolent, yet still held an emotional tremor of regret. A war that was long even for the Elder, it utterly robbed the warp of its tranquility. Blazkowicz sat cross-legged on the ground. Only Prima's voice echoed in the crystal room. He lamented the grand and tragic war in heaven, and was deeply drawn to the ancient history. The imbalance of the warp, without the guidance and appeasement of my race, completely devolved into a vile place teeming with filth. Prima sat up from the bed, fine scales rippling on his face. His eyes surveyed his surroundings, choosing his words with extreme caution. Blazkowicz became even more attentive. The mastermind behind his father's death, he deeply memorized every word the Elder spoke, not daring to miss a single detail. This was too important to him. The Elder's explanation helped Blazkowicz peel back the layers of mist before him, pointing him in the right direction. As for the truth of what he said, Blazkowicz felt that an Elder who had lived for over 60 million years and had no other kin in the universe had no reason to deceive him. In fact, just now, he had pulled him back from the brink of death. Gods born from various concepts collected in the warp, they are abstract beings of pure malice. Their very existence is defilement, and they crave to harvest the souls of the material world. But gods and the warp cannot be conflated. Gods are gods, and the warp is the warp. The concept of the warp is all-encompassing. It accommodates all beings that enter it, even the chaos of disorder. Gods are the extreme representation of chaotic disorder, and they are also encompassed by the warp. To deal with the gods, the warp is key. Prima waved the pipe in his hand, stirring the chaotic 8-pointed star formed by smoke into a vortex. His large eyes fixed on Blazkowicz, he sternly admonished, "Boy, you must remember the warp encompasses everything. When fighting them, will is the key." Blazkowicz pondered, deeply remembering these words. The Elder's hint was certainly not simple, containing the profound secrets of dealing with the warp. One a newcomer, the other a pioneer. The two exchanged questions and answers. Blazkowicz was like a supercomputer, constantly storing and analyzing, acquiring knowledge from the Elder. The Elder's knowledge was like a bottomless ocean, constantly refreshing Blazkowicz's perception of the world and his view of the universe. Prima, with half-closed eyes, continuously answered Blazkovich's questions, teaching this mysterious demigod. Over 60 million years, he had witnessed too many rises and falls, yet he had never seen a unique being like Blazkovich. They talked about many things. After King Noak visited Prima, he briefly left the cave, unbound the orcs on the battlefield, and tested Blazkovich's abilities. The null crystal was planted by the Elder to construct the vast webway throughout the galaxy, and its various wondrous uses. From the Elder's peak, to the tragic war in heaven, to the Elder's demise and the ascension of the races they uplifted. Was it your race that created humanity? Blazkovich was a little surprised, a subtle, awkward feeling rising in his heart. The origin of the human race, it turned out, came from a group of intelligent frogs. The creators that ancient humans desperately sought were space frogs in spaceships. Not created. Prima's long tongue licked his dry eyes, correcting Blazkovich's wording. It was a kind of intelligent upliftment. Our race has the means to create races, but we use it cautiously. Life is a miracle, and even if we can create life, we should maintain a sense of reverence. Don't say created. All the races are kind, uplifted, after losing guidance, inevitably experience decline. He held his pipe, the smoke he exhaled transforming as he spoke, vividly describing to Blazkovich, Ildari Krork. The Ildari had the most hope of becoming the next us, but they fell into arrogance, awakened a chaos god, and self-destructed. The Krork as weapons of war. The current scale of war cannot awaken the Elder's blessing. There were many more creations of the Elder, appearing with the exhalations of smoke, only to dissipate the next moment. The universe is vast, just like the constantly changing smoke, countless races rising and falling in the history of the universe. Only humanity was unexpected. Our race sowed wisdom on your homeworld, not deliberately choosing a specific species, but equally giving every species a chance. We don't know when humanity awakened wisdom. The Elder had already perished by then. Prima, however, smiled somewhat unexpectedly, but humanity was surprisingly, without guidance, able to forge its own path. Even giving birth to a powerful being, he did not tell Blazkovich this sentence. For the Elder, they imparted knowledge and enlightened species, but they would not reveal too much about fate. Only by discovering and comprehending it oneself can true knowledge be obtained. His gaze fell on Blazkovich, and he muttered to himself again, "Now there's another demigod body with infinite potential." Humanity truly is a race favored by fate. Prima took a deep puff from his pipe. The tobacco in it seemed inexhaustible. He sighed from the bottom of his heart at the unpredictability and stubbornness of human destiny. This race never lacked heroes and leaders. You said I have the right to challenge the gods. Having understood the past and present, Blazkovich had an impression of the warp, and finally asked the question that had been weighing on his chest. The right to challenge the gods. Blazkovich knew nothing about this, not even what the right was. Of course you do. Prima glanced at the mark on Blazkovich's chest. For the owner of the right, the warp will respond. Can you be more specific? The vague words were half hidden, making their true meaning inscrutable. Even with Blazkovich's keen mind, he couldn't grasp what this so-called right was and what the warp's response entailed. Prima took a deep drag, enjoying the tobacco with narrowed eyes, but just shook his head and did not answer the question again. Can I defeat the gods? Blazkovich sat cross-legged on the ground, fury burning in his eyes, his iron fists clenching with a grinding sound. It depends on your own choice. Prima paused, then added, but I have full confidence in you. Among all the powerful beings who have challenged the gods, you are unique. It depends on his own heart. Blazkovich only wanted to flay them, disembowel them, and make them vanish into thin air. HMMPH. Harlan, who had been lying on the ground beside them, groggily woke up, shaking his head to dispel the pleasant sensation in his mind. He stretched his body, his joints emitting a series of crisp cracks. Harlan felt an unprecedented fullness, an endless surge of power within him. He felt he could defeat several of his former selves. "My lord." Seeing him sitting cross-legged on the ground, his eyes lit up, and a joyful smile spread across his face, a sense of relief washing over him. His pillar of strength still stood. "Thank you, Elder." Harlan knelt on one knee, expressing his gratitude to the Elder with a warrior's salute. He naturally knew that the Elder's blessing had transformed him. A powerful warrior needs a powerful weapon. Prima patted the wall and the crystal surged, spitting out a weapon. He raised his hand, holding it. Elder Divine Weapon. An ancient, simple long spear. The spear shaft looked like rough stone, and the blade was very long and wide, made of an extremely thin obsidian material, reflecting a deep black light. 2 strings of mysterious ancient script were carved on both sides of the blade, flowing like light across the blade's body. The appearance of the ancient spear drew the gaze of both Blazkowicz and Harlan. As warriors, they could naturally sense the extraordinary nature of that spear. The Life Forger held it with both hands, his peaceful voice changing its tone, as if chanting a war song, a glorious history of the past. He lightly kissed the spear shaft. Dark radiance, it once wounded a star god. Prima raised both hands, concealing the nostalgia in his eyes, and tossed the spear to Harlan. The spear was too small for Harlan. He found it awkward to hold. Just as he was about to politely decline, dark radiance automatically adjusted its size, length, and even weight in his hand. Feeling the power of the divine artifact, Harlan joyfully swung it a few times, immediately knowing that it had transformed into the perfect state for its wielder. Holding the divine artifact, Harlan again knelt on one knee to express his thanks, but Prima stopped him with a raised hand. Such a divine artifact was covetable. Blazkowicz, rubbing his hands nearby, looked at the Elder expectantly. "You will find your own weapon. It will be most suitable for you and most worthy of you." Prima grinned mysteriously. Blazkowicz felt no regret. Now he only wanted to return quickly and seek revenge on the gods. "Remember, the warp is the key. Consciousness determines victory. The warp will respond to those with authority." Blazkowicz and Harlan departed in a hurry, and the Crystal Hunter Hawk retrieved the flight motorcycle from the warp. Prima watched the 2 distant figures, then returned to its cave, retrieved an ancient mirror, and observed their movements. "O gods, playing with fire is destined to get burned. This outsider, perhaps, is an enemy to you filthy beings." The Old Ones were the first intelligent life forms in the universe, and the earliest race to discover and utilize the warp. They clearly knew of the embodiment of evil lurking in the depths of the warp, and worked tirelessly to calm its turbulent waves. Since the destruction of its race, Prima had been hiding alone in the infinite dimension of crystal, believing that the entire universe was beyond saving, destined to become a plaything of the chaos gods. Even that golden-shining human was doomed to fail. 6 months ago, King Noak specifically sought it out, saying that a mysterious little fellow had descended from the sky to Argent Nur. Prima, taking a great risk, prompted the orc Guzka to test Blazkowicz. The runic mark shimmering on his chest caught its attention. It was a symbol never seen before. Prima was certain that in its long lifespan, it had never encountered such runes. It immediately determined that Blazkowicz was definitely not a creature of this universe, but very likely a powerful external entity. Prima's emotions, which had been unmoving for millions of years, trembled with ecstasy. It saw hope again. The demise of the Old Ones was largely related to the Chaos Gods. The last Old One to walk the universe was personally strangled by Slaanesh. The ancient sage also harbored hatred in its heart, and it saw the hope of revenge. Healing Blazkowicz without reservation, and bestowing ancient artifacts upon him to provide an additional boost was a proactive investment. Revenge. Prima closed the crystal channel, hiding in the rift of the infinite dimension, watching Blazkowicz's fate. Blazkowicz personally piloted the anti-gravity motorcycle, pushing its performance to the limit, traveling faster than Harlan's arrival, and returning to the Argentum in 2 hours. He strode forward, heading towards the throne hall to discuss the revenge expedition with his brother. "I disagree." Before he got close, Blazkowicz heard a sharp refusal, and it seemed a dispute was happening inside the throne hall. "I do not agree to open the Old World armory. Those terrifying weapons will destroy us. The City of Truth has acquired some powerful force. A rash expedition is ill-advised. We should negotiate with them and stabilize them temporarily." Blazkowicz's suppressed anger stirred, his face darkened, and he strode forward with bloodshot eyes. Outside the throne hall, the throne guards, seeing the warlord approaching under a dark cloud, instinctively moved to block him, but Harlan, who was behind him, signaled them to let him pass. "Go and invite the forging master," Blazkowicz whispered to a throne guard as he passed. "Wait." The doors of the throne hall were pushed open, and the sharp voice inside seemed to be choked by an invisible hand. Many civil officials lowered their heads, their hands tucked into their robes, using the shadows to hide their guilt. Only Flano smiled, laughing at the ignorance of the ministers. With external enemies surrounding them and the king fallen, those with impure hearts began to stir. Blazkowicz nodded to his brother standing by the throne, his cold gaze sweeping over the assembled officials, the immense pressure making them instinctively lower their heads. How dare they be so shameless? Just hours ago, King Noak bled in the throne hall, leaving behind all his preparations solely for the Argentum to have the power to defeat the Chaos God's minions. Before his bones were even cold, a group of ministers, protected by the king, were thinking of negotiating with the enemies who killed their monarch. The king's lingering prestige had not yet faded, yet someone dared to disrespect him. "Who?" Blazkowicz asked in a low voice. He naturally knew who it was. His extraordinary memory stored everyone's name. "I think... Slap." The robed minister's words were cut short. In a fraction of a second, his head spun and flew off, blood splattering on the blue glass. Blazkowicz caught his head, brushed aside the hair at the back of his neck, revealing a vivid red miniature 8-pointed star symbol carved there. The corruption of chaos had already begun to spread. The common people in the Argentum did not possess the same formidable resistance as the Sentinels. Holding up the still terrified head in one hand, Blazkowicz ascended the throne steps, displaying the evil mark to everyone. "Do you recognize this mark?" His gaze swept over everyone in the throne hall, taking in their expressions. The ministers all shook their heads, claiming they had never seen it. "A symbol of blasphemy, the mark of a chaos god." Blazkowicz roared in a low voice. His hatred burned at the mention of those blasphemous things. He knew the threat of chaos influence, which would spread with knowledge, corrupting minds and souls. The people of Argent Nur must know of chaos' existence. Their future enemies would inevitably include chaos. There will never be negotiations. Blazkowicz's low roar was resounding, the resolve in his words as firm as a rock. Here, there is only a life-and-death struggle, an unending hatred. His voice echoed through the throne hall, and the ministers trembled at his roar. "Revenge," Flano unconditionally supported Blazkowicz, raising his brother's arm and shouting for revenge. "Revenge!" The guards standing by the throne struck their gun butts against the ground, their suppressed roars filled with the fury of revenge. Blazkowicz was now disinclined to use political means, aiming to quickly unify opinion and eradicate the chaos stronghold in Argent Nur. To uproot them completely. "My lord, why have you summoned me?" The forging master, wearing a black forge robe with several mechanical appendages behind him, arrived, followed by 2 apprentices carrying a large box. "Forging master." Blazkowicz nodded in greeting, then asked the master, who was skilled in calculation and forging war machinery, "What weapon in the Old World armory can completely destroy Argent Nur, leaving no trace. Boom, tilde, tilde, tilde. This question was like a bomb, thrown into the throne hall, exploding in everyone's ears. They felt dizzy and a little unsteady, filled with dread all at once. The throne guards, the court ministers, and even Flano Novik looked at Blazkowicz in disbelief. Their hearts were filled with questions. Why did the War Lord want to destroy Argent Nur, this planet where humans had lived for tens of thousands of years? They also considered that, without the ability to travel deep into space, destroying Argent Nur meant the extinction of everything. Everyone looked at Blazkowicz, awaiting his explanation. Blazkowicz stared directly at the forging master, also awaiting the professional's answer. The forging master's nerve-connected mechanical appendages trembled under the influence of his uneasy brain waves, and he raised a hand to wipe the cold sweat from his head. Out of duty and professional skill, he tremblingly uttered 4 words: unsalvageable elegy. Argent Nur might suffer a bit, but it will be absolutely clean. Unsalvageable elegy. As its name implied, a painful but irreversible name, and Blazkowicz's heart also felt a touch of bitterness because of it. Just as the forging master said, Argent Nur would suffer greatly, but it would be very clean. Within the mechanical iron coffin of the unsalvageable elegy, a miniature black hole slept. Once the protective device was disengaged, the black hole would expand, its immense gravity tearing Argent Nur apart piece by piece, then swallowing it whole, leaving no trace. In the throne hall, the forging master's gaze also rested on Blazkowicz. Everyone was waiting for an explanation. Otherwise, even if it meant risking their lives, they would not agree to use the black hole weapon. Everyone, we have no retreat. Blazkowicz's voice was tinged with sadness. He also did not wish to destroy Argent Nur, but had to consider the worst-case scenario. If Argent Nur is not under the rule of the Argentum, not protected by the Sentinels, and leaves human control, what meaning does its existence have? The situation is far more severe than you can imagine. Our enemies are supernatural entities. After Blazkowicz finished speaking, he said no more, awaiting everyone's reply. The individuals in the throne hall were all important figures holding power, and naturally understood the sorrow in the warlord's words. They whispered among themselves, some in deep thought, others discussing in low tones. Agreed. 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 Finally, everyone reached a consensus, agreeing with Blazkowicz's decision. Yes, if the Sentinels failed, there would be no need for Argent Nur to exist either. Let everyone be buried with it. With a unanimous agreement, everyone left the throne hall. Although the Sentinels was on the front lines, ready for battle at any moment, affairs within the city still needed to be arranged. My lord. The forging master did not leave, calling out to Blazkowicz, who was about to depart. Here is a gift from King Noak for you. Blazkowicz looked at him. The box on the ground was already open, and inside lay a heavy war hammer. The long-handled hammer looked substantial, its handle wrapped in leather to prevent slipping, and its hammerhead was perfectly square. A weapon commissioned by King Noak, master-level craftsmanship. It should be sufficient for your use. The forging master introduced the war hammer to Blazkowicz. The high-density alloy hammer handle is strong enough to withstand your strength, and the disintegration field on the hammerhead means instant death upon contact. Blazkowicz felt the weight of the war hammer in his hand. In fact, it was a bit light. Thank you. His reply did not betray his father's good intentions, nor did it disappoint the forging master's expectations. With the heavy hammer on his back, Blazkowicz turned and left. He had to rush to the front line, assemble the Sentinels, and fight a decisive battle to the death against the Chaos God's minions. Blazkowicz and Harlan worked tirelessly, arranging matters in the Argentum before immediately heading to the Sentinels' encampment to assemble their troops for battle. With each passing second, the power of chaos grew stronger. To expedite the troop assembly, they recalled Elton Senna, who had just returned to the main city. Where did you get that from? Harlan was showing off his new weapon to his friend, a true divine artifact that made Senna incredibly jealous. With Blazkowicz around, he truly didn't have to worry too much. He even had time to joke. Dark Radiance? Harlan was unwilling to reveal the weapon's origin, proudly brandishing it, causing flashes of faint light. Upon hearing the weapon's cool name, Senna was once again green with envy. He left the team in a huff, contacting his troops. The process of contacting the troops was not very difficult. The servants of chaos were holed up in the City of Truth, sharpening their claws and waiting for the Argentum's revenge. When Blazkowicz led his army along the shadow of the train tracks to the City of Truth, the fantastical sight before them astonished the sentinels. The City of Truth was still there, but it had changed drastically. Its sky had leaked, space was burnt with a hole by the power of chaos, and blasphemous and colorful magic poured down from the circular opening like a rushing waterfall. The magnificent sky pillar, symbolizing human civilization, was painted with the 8-pointed star pattern of blasphemy. Outside the city, it had become a putrid swamp, with gnarled, tumorous trees twisting and intertwining within, teeming with venomous insects and decay, churning with sickly green poison. Those sickly green, pot-bellied demons, their bodies rotting and oozing pus, bathed and sang joyfully in the swamp, their bodies riddled with putrid cavities and vibrant microbial colonies. Brass spikes grew on the smooth stone walls, and hot lava flowed from the city walls, making the sturdy ramparts almost impregnable. Bloodthirsters stood atop the city walls, stretching their wings and limbering up, preparing for a major battle. Pink mist permeated the air, and purple thorns pierced through the city gates, constantly dripping venom. Keeper of secrets, great demons twisted their alluring forms, patrolling near the city gates, continuously releasing poisonous mist. The tallest tower in the City of Truth burned with raging azure magical flames, and gusts of wind carried magical energy. Lords of Change spread their wings and soared, holding staves and chanting the wisdom of the Lord of Change in the air. Beneath the demon armies of the four gods, there were countless small demons of various twisted and different appearances. On and below the city walls were also mortal cultists, corrupted by chaos and worshipping the four gods. They had grown horns and spikes, with 8-pointed stars carved on their heads, their bodies gradually losing their human form. The City of Truth now held no truth, only twisted reality and rampant chaos. Blazkowicz stood at the forefront of the army, naturally understanding that the priests had continuously cast spells, twisting the reality here into the warp. The power of the four gods' demon army was far greater than before. A blue light flashed on the city wall, and the culprit, Isaac, appeared on the city wall using a magical flash, coming into Blazkowicz's line of sight. Despite his demonization, Blazkowicz recognized him at a glance. "Welcome, warlord, welcome, sentinels." His voice, amplified by magic, echoed throughout the City of Truth. "Do you like what I've prepared for you? The armies of the gods await you, ha ha ha." Mad laughter shrieked. He had now offered everything to the Lord of Change, completely demonized. Isaac. Upon returning to the City of Truth, he had searched through ancient texts and indeed found that secret agreement. But what did it matter now? He had already received a response from the gods. All he needed was devout worship and complete dedication. The magical flames burned the agreement, and even Isaac's last shred of self. He had sacrificed the entire City of Truth, using blasphemous chaos magic to exchange for a destructive army from the gods. Now the City of Truth was a true chaos demon realm. To destroy the Sentinels, capture Blazkowicz, and offer him to the gods, he would ascend to become a demon prince, an eternal being. Blazkowicz took a deep breath, letting out a roar like thunder. "Where is Elise?" The boisterous great unclean ones stopped laughing. The bloodthirsters reigned in their ferocity, Slaanish's keepers of secrets halted their steps, and the lords of change in the air hastily descended. Many small demons were so terrified by this roar that their forms disintegrated, and the chaos cultists were even more scared out of their wits. The power of a Primarch was terrifying. The demons felt it. They felt the rage in the roar and knew the horror of having their true names erased. "She's fine, your brother is with her." Isaac, almost completely insane, didn't understand Blazkovich's power, taunting and mocking him. "Want to save her? She's waiting for you at the center of the ritual Tilda. How will you defeat the armies of the gods and save your beloved mother?" "You'll find out soon enough." Blazkovich's face was expressionless, his gaze cold as he stared at the completely corrupted man. "Het het het Tilda, I'll be waiting Tilda." With a flash of blue light, Isaac vanished from the city wall to preside over the grand chaos ritual. It couldn't proceed without its master. With the insane Isaac gone, Blazkovich turned to face the Sentinels. It was time to let them know who the true enemy was. "Sentinels." He took off his warhammer and jumped onto a small rise, ensuring that every Sentinels could see him and hear his voice. His resonant voice was louder than any magic. "Do you know what we face?" "Demons." The Sentinels responded in unison. They already knew about these supernatural beings called demons. "No, demons are just a bunch of filthy servants." Blazkovich's roar had immense penetrating power. That deep, rich voice held an extraordinary magic. "It's gods, the gods, true gods." The Sentinels remained silent, feeling the warlord's anger. "They used trickery to kill your king, my father." The news of King Noak's death had not yet reached the front lines. After a brief moment of shock, the Sentinels erupted in fury. "Revenge, revenge, revenge." All the Sentinels let out a deafening roar. Their fervent will for revenge even made the demons tremble. "For thousands of years, we have been the strongest warriors. We are the proudest beings. No one can stop us." Blazkovich pressed the disruptor field activator. The hammer's body flickered with tiny lightning bolts. He raised the hammer high, the glory of a Primarch fully displayed. He stood there, hammer raised. The Sentinels knelt with a clatter, listening to his inspiring words. "Now I will bestow upon you a reward never before seen." Blazkovich's final inquiry was a roar, his impassioned voice stirring the souls of the warriors. "Raise your blades against the gods, challenge the gods. Do you accept? Do you accept?" His question echoed through the space, reverberating in the silent wilderness. "We accept your reward." The Sentinels shouted their response in unison, their hearts surging, kneeling on one knee yet proudly holding their heads high. Who else in the universe would dare to be as proud as them, to accept the reward of challenging the gods? "Brothers, light up your blades." Harlan shed tears of excitement, brandishing the dark radiance in his hand, raising it high and letting out a hoarse roar. "Let the gods taste our sharpness. Let evil kneel and beg for mercy before us." Let the gods taste our sharpness. Let evil kneel and beg for mercy before us. The Sentinels trembled with excitement, all lighting up their weapons. Right now, at this moment, they stood up again, backs ramrods straight, looking contemptuously at the horde of demons before them. A group of fearless warriors had raised their blades against the gods, challenging their authority. The four gods' demon army fell silent. The humans before them were a group of fearless warriors who didn't care who their enemy was, brandishing their blades against all foes. Willpower is the key to battle. Let these rotten things see how tough our will is. We are Argent Nur's blades. We will cut down all enemies. We are Argent Nur's strong wall. We are destined for triumph. The will of the Sentinels was unified and firm. Under the warp-transformed city of truth, their killing intent and rage burned the souls of the demons. They gripped their weapons, battle intent boiling, just waiting for the command to crush the demons into dust. "Warlord, following your orders, the Titan train has arrived." The ground began to tremble slightly, and communication came through the comms channel. Above the Sentinels on the train tracks, the massive Titan train approached the city of truth at undiminished speed, heading straight for it. "Thank you, I offer you my highest respect." Blazkowicz placed his hand over his chest, saluting the forge masters on the train, who were driving the Titan train without hesitation. "For Argentnur may you triumph." Before Blazkowicz set off, he meticulously calculated the timing, arranging for the Titan train to depart from the Argentum, use orbital acceleration, and crash into the City of Truth's shield. The rapidly moving Titan train, like a high-speed bullet, violently struck the City of Truth's defensive shield. The first layer of the shield was a void shield designed to intercept high-speed objects by transferring them to the warp. The Titan train's speed was not enough to activate it. The second layer was a psionic shield, constructed by robed and hooded priests on the wall guiding psionic spells, and it was incredibly tough. Pure kinetic energy released upon the psionic shield was not enough to pierce it. Intercepted by the shield, the Titan train's 10 rear carriages all derailed, their immense kinetic energy throwing them forward. Crashing into the psionic shield. Bang, bang, bangs. Though the crashing carriages created an astonishing spectacle, they only caused ripples on the psionic shield, unable to penetrate it. Phew tilde. The priests on the city wall let out a sigh of relief. While the Titan train was imposing, the impact force from pure kinetic energy was indeed not very strong. The ritual inside the city was at a critical juncture and could not tolerate any disturbance. Once the ritual succeeded, the City of Truth would be completely warped. At that time, an endless army of demons would cross into reality unimpeded, bringing the most brutal destruction to the Sentinels. The carriage's semicircular shields slid off, falling into the swamp below the city wall, splashing countless rotten mud. The chaos cultists below the city wall screamed and cursed incessantly, mocking the Titan train's powerlessness with exaggerated, distorted expressions. Their minds were dominated by chaos, venting their twisted emotions. PFFT tilde. The mechanical locks of the carriages that fell into the swamp automatically opened, and black viscous liquid flowed out, quickly spreading over a large area in the swamp. Prometheum, the cultists smelled it, their faces showing terror as they shrieked a warning. During the era of space colonization, human pioneers collectively referred to all flammable chemical fuels as prometheum. Ghosts in the shadows fired incendiary rounds from sniper rifles, hitting the prometheum flowing in the swamp. Boom tilde. Explosive flames shot into the sky, dyeing half the sky crimson. Great unclean ones and Nurgle demons in the swamp writhed in the flames, while venomous insects and ants shrieked in the inferno. The gnarled old tree branches, intertwined together, were roasted by the fierce prometheum incendiary, then dried up and burst open, becoming fuel for the sea of fire. The firelight cast an orange-red glow on the Sentinels' white armor. They watched the burning inferno mercilessly as demons screamed and wailed within. Blazkowicz had done his homework well. With knowledge passed down from ancient saints, his understanding of demons deepened. Fire and swords were the most effective direct means against demons. Especially Nurgle demons, those embodiments of decay and disease, walking scourges carrying plagues. From ancient times to the present, high temperatures and flames have been the natural enemies of pathogens. Nurgle, as the master of decay, fears fire, a trait even etched into the very concept of the chaos god. The demons and diseases born from its consciousness naturally fear fire the most. A massive prometheum fire ignited Nurgle's swamp, burning a path forward for the Sentinels. The Lord of Change shrieked in the air. 9 Tzeentch greater demons formed a circle, their eyes glowing with magical light, each chanting a syllable to summon a magical downpour, attempting to extinguish the flames. They absolutely cannot be allowed to succeed. Prometheum is not afraid of downpours. Ordinary rainwater cannot extinguish chemical fires. But the Lord of Change intended to summon conceptual rain from the warp. How to stop them? The Lord of Change was hidden within the shield's range, protected by multiple layers of shields, rendering ordinary methods completely ineffective. Blazkovich's expression remained calm. He already had a countermeasure. Upon leaving the Argentum, he selected several relic weapons from the old armory to deal with the endless psionic methods of sorcerers. He took a large-caliber pistol from his back belt buckle. Its appearance was unadorned. Apart from its massive caliber, it had no special features. Blazkovich handed the pistol to Harlan, asking his guard to fire. It wasn't due to any reservations, simply because his hands were too large to grip the pistol. Harlan took the pistol with a smile. These relics, sealed in the old armory, were rarely used even once by some sentinels during their long service. No special aiming was needed, nor did distance matter. One only needed to raise the pistol, point it at the target, and pull the trigger. Click tilde, click tilde, click tilde. There was no sound of a bullet firing, only the clear, empty click of the trigger. High above the city of truth, the 9 Lord of Change demons did not scream, but plummeted straight down from the sky. This was the automatic smart gun, an extremely rare conceptual weapon. Its user only needed to see the chosen target in their field of vision, raise the gun, and fire to hit the target. The guaranteed hit concept imbued in the gun body meant the bullet would appear directly inside the target's brain, then detonate the warhead. A 100% hit rate made it almost impossible for targets to escape, and paired with soul-shattering bullets that broke psionic defenses, slaying demons was not difficult. The spell was interrupted, and the psionic backlash ruptured the Lord of Change's slender throats, exploding above the city of truth. Psionic energy is an extremely unstable form of energy, especially in the warp, where its power becomes immensely strong. With great power comes great backlash. The empty boom of the failed psionic spell exploded overhead, affecting the priests maintaining the psionic barrier below. Blood seeped from their mouths and noses, making it difficult to concentrate and guide the flow of psionic energy, and the psionic shield immediately failed. Sentinels, charge with me, tear apart their defenses. Just then, Blazkovich roared, leading the charge of the sentinels himself. The swamp was evaporated by the promethium flames, and the high temperature raged across the dry land. The sentinels followed Blazkovich's footsteps, advancing towards the city of truth, treading on sparks. Blazkovich's steps were heavy. He restrained his body's berserk functions, leading the sentinels in a collective charge. Chaos cultists swarmed forward. Blazkovich wielded his warhammer, not activating the troublesome disintegration field, and simply smashed them into bloody paste. Harlan followed closely behind him, the divine artifact in his hand emitting a dark glow. Its broad blade tore through the cultists' bodies even more smoothly than a dimensional light blade. Not only that, as enemies died, a surge of vitality was plundered into his body, and Harlan felt no fatigue at all. After drinking the primordial soup, his physical functions were greatly enhanced, and the champion swordsman's combat power increased by several levels. The sentinel's spearhead charge was too sharp, and the two at the very tip were invincible. Cultists and demons blocking their way were all pierced through. Their immense battle intent wounded the demons, and their firm will made the warp tremble. Their formation was flawless, and their charge was unstoppable. The torrent of heavy infantry swept through, leaving only the trampled bodies of their enemies. Weapons made of null crystal were too effective against demons. These demons, blessed by the chaos gods and almost immune to ranged attacks, had their bodies shredded by the extended blades. Blazkovich's body was stained with foul blood, along with sticky minced flesh mixed with bone fragments. The warhammer in his hand was driven by savage power, filled with unquenchable hatred. Cultists were smashed into bursting pulp, and demons were annihilated with a single hammer blow. At this moment, the usual suppression in his eyes receded, as he unleashed accumulated hatred and fury upon the demons. The runic mark on his chest flickered like breathing. The more demons he killed, the stronger Blazkovich became. Keeper of secrets patrolling the city gate shrieked seductive whispers, twisting their unholy bodies, waving their arms and pincers, and approached with phantom-like steps. Blazkovich's left hand shot up from below, seizing its throat, and with a slight squeeze, crushed the greater demon's neck and tore off its head. His right hand swung the warhammer upwards again, sending a bloodthirster, who had leaped from the city wall attempting to challenge him, flying, crushing its lower jaw and smashing its head. Even with the Sentinel's cooperation, the greater demons could not escape death, being shattered into pieces and returning to the warp. Without stopping, Blazkovich rushed to the city gate, grabbed the thorny vines and ripped them out by the roots like garbage. "Drill," he growled, urging the warriors carrying the equipment. 4 Sentinel's soldiers rushed up, carrying the drill, which could create a hole in the final energy shield to allow the troops to enter. The drill's principle was simple. It used 4 null crystals on the energy shield to open a dimensional channel. It was like inserting a tube into a bubble to allow air to flow through. With the channel opened, Blazkovich looked at the heavy, steel-forged city gate before him. He lowered his stance, exerted force suddenly, and his body instantly vanished from his original spot. A dull impact reverberated inside and out. The passage to the interior of the City of Truth was finally opened. Everyone, including demons and priests, stared blankly at the tall figure standing in the dust of the city gate. His flesh and blood body was completely unharmed, though his shoulder armor was shattered. The heavy city gate, weighing thousands of tons, flew up like a piece of paper hurled dozens of meters, killing dozens of chaos cultists along the way, plowing a deep trench in the ground, and finally embedding itself in a blocking wall. Hiss tilde. No one could witness such a terrifying scene without fear. Chaos cultists and priests gasped, feeling a chill down their spines. What kind of creature were they facing? Was such a being still human? Scum. Blazkovich, bathed in blood, stormed into the city, holding a heavy warhammer in one hand, the air he exhaled terrifyingly hot. His eyes swept over the enemies within the city, his roar filled with the resolve to slay all foes. Face me if you dare. Chapter 42, The Slayer. Blazkovich led the Sentinels, breaking through the numerous shields of the City of Truth, smashing the city gates and charging into the inner city. Though also a city built with Argent Nur's white stone, this place held no purity or resilience. All that met the eye was grotesque and twisted. The Sentinels raised their great swords high, their warriors' iron boots stepping into the sorcerer's domain, pouring in through the breach in the shield. The distortion in the inner city was even more severe. Outside, it was a surface of disgusting tumors, while inside, it was an interior composed of putrefaction and mutations. Pus flowed here and decay spread everywhere. The floor was a rippling wave of flesh. Fountains gushed out turbid, viscous, fragrant liquid, and trees split open, growing fleshy tendrils. Lymph-like tumors bulged from the architectural cracks. The wizard's towers had cruciform windows that were 4-lobed pupils, doorframes like stark white teeth, and carpets that oozed blood like swollen tongue moss. The entire inner city had detached from the laws of the real universe. Under the influence of chaos power, cold, dead objects grew malevolent, and inorganic matter twisted into writhing flesh. The City of Truth was becoming a living entity, gradually descending into demented distortion. If an ordinary mortal were to enter the inner city and witness these insane sights, they would scream and go mad in collapse. The Sentinels was also shocked by the ugliness before them. All of this was gradually exceeding human comprehension, entering an unknown realm of madness. Malice gripped sanity, twisting it with force. This was not a nexus of the warp and reality. The Sentinels had charged into a chaos-infused demonic realm. Willpower is the wall that defends sanity. At the moment sanity was shaken, a roar like thunder awakened the will of the Sentinels, defending their own reason. Blazkovich also saw these twisted creations. His eyes were calm as ever, and his heart held not a ripple ignoring the madness and distortion. Beneath the hateful face of chaos lay only the corruption of common sense, the bullying of the weak, poisoning them. His will could not be shaken. He strode forward with large steps. Where his feet landed, chaos recoiled and fled. Where his gaze fell, corruption retreated 3 paces. The sentinels awoke with a roar, dispelling the wavering in their hearts, and followed Blazkovich's steps forward. Fearless, unhesitating. Their aura and will seemed to connect, like independent bricks forming an invisible wall. We are Argent Nur's sharp blade. We shall cut down all enemies. We are Argent Nur's strong bulwark. We shall surely triumph. Chanting the warrior's code, the will of the sentinels transformed into a sharp blade, into the toughest bulwark. The twisted horrors that obscured their vision gradually dissipated, and the warriors saw the weakness and deception of chaos. You will not break our will, face our blades. The united warriors challenged the power of chaos, pointing their weapons at the demons, ready to fight evil to the death. No elaborate commands were needed now. The sentinels understood that destroying the sorcerer's magic circles would make the profane psychic energy and demons disappear. They formed into 10-person teams, quickly forming battle formations, and began to clear out the chaos, cultists, and demon legions at the breach. Human servants, led by demons, surged from all directions, intending to block the sentinels at the breach before their battle line could expand. If they held this spot, the sentinels would be in a dilemma, unable to press their advantage. The 4 gods' allied army. The 4 gods' demonic armies formed an alliance. The demon legions gathered into a demonic tide, surging forward like a flood. The fat and bloated great unclean one was at the forefront of the demonic army. The sentinels' energy beams cut through their bodies, but the rotten flesh re-adhered. They pushed the front line, splattering demonic blood that spread terrible supernatural viruses, attacking on a microscopic level. The Lord of Change in the air flapped its brilliant wings, constantly dropping Tzynkian demonic fire from its fingertips. Falling into the sentinels' ranks, the unquenchable demonic fire melted armor, burning flesh to ashes. Khorne's blood-red army, led by the Bloodthirster, formed a dense military formation beyond the understanding of the physical world, charging against the white bulwark. The 2 sides clashed in close combat, demon blades colliding with dimensional light blades, divine blessings, and the dimensions of the physical universe tearing at each other. In the gaps where the dimensional shields flickered, a bloodletter's hellblade pierced a sentinel's member. It was torn apart by the counterattack, but blood continued to pour from the wound. Slaanesh's servants, riding Slaanesh steeds, advanced rapidly with unnatural steps, twisting and turning. Demons and humans slaughtered each other on the battlefield. The warpification deepened, and the demons grew stronger. The sentinels, led by Blazkovich, unleashed astonishing combat power with their tenacious will. Demons had never seen such resolute warriors. Even with their bodies pierced, they counterattacked, their light blades swinging with unwavering killing intent. For the first time, the sentinels suffered heavy casualties in a battle. The enemy's supernatural methods were endless. Viruses gnawed at bodies, flames burned souls, warlike demons charged incessantly, and cavalry repeatedly rushed into the formation and quickly retreated. And in the melee, one man fought alone. The weapon in his hand emitted a dark light, its blade as thin as a cicada's wing and exceptionally sharp. A light sweep over a demon would leave it headless. Around Harlan, there were only the sparks of dissipating demons. The ancient artifact of the old ones was extraordinary. The spear blade could not be stopped, not even by demons blessed by the 4 gods. The swirling dark radiance slowed the surrounding demons, and the stolen vitality left Harlan without fatigue. Is this all you've got? What are the servants of the 4 gods worth? The champion swordsman cursed and provoked, sending his regards to the 4 gods behind the demons, blaspheming their masters. And there was another, even more unstoppable. Blazkovich, the sharpest tip of the spear, the toughest point of the bulwark. Under his leadership, the sentinels advanced relentlessly, soldiers continuously pouring in, expanding the front line at the breach. Nothing living could stop him. The cultists' frenzied charges were even less significant than the paving stones on the ground that needed to be avoided. Demons and priests alike knew that Blazkovich was the crucial point, the backbone of the sentinels. Chaos, magic, and psychic attacks rained down on him without a moment's pause. The Lord of Change's magical flames burned on him, psychic lightning struck him incessantly, and icy spikes rained down like hail. Useless, all useless. Before Blazkovich's almost tangible consciousness, psychic damage was like a breeze, causing no actual harm. Time magic shattered upon impact, unable to halt his steps, and gravitational distortions could not shake his body. Blazkovich embodied a concept, a powerful concept that could not be stopped, traversing ice and fire, stepping through time and space. The wizards compressed their mental power into spikes, attempting to pierce Blazkovich's mind, but they saw an infinitely high wall. With just a glance back, the sorcerer who attempted to invade his mental domain was instead powerfully repelled, their skull exploding. Demons surged like a tide, then fell like a tide before him. They screamed, they roared, their demonic might soaring. They wailed, they howled, and died in silence. Surrounded by demons, Blazkovich remained silent. With each demon he killed, he grew stronger. His inexhaustible stamina allowed him to slaughter relentlessly. The warhammer gifted by his father was heating up. The steel hammerhead was deforming from collisions with demons, showing metal fatigue. Blazkovich simply swung his warhammer. The disintegration field was too lenient on demons. Smashing them to death was more fitting. Leading the sentinels relentlessly forward, towards the center of the city of truth, to the location of the chaos ritual. Only by destroying that place could they truly claim some victory. Demons continuously poured into reality through the ritual array. As the sentinels continued to enter, and all 15,000 of Blazkovich's men had entered, the sky suddenly changed color. Crack, rumble, lightning shrieked, and the ground trembled. From 8 directions at the city's edge, chaos energy surged, rising into the sky and converging at the city center. A kaleidoscopic, twisted staircase slowly descended from the sky, enveloping the city of truth. A giant chaos 8-pointed star emerged from the ground, and chaos power surged through the city. The earth cracked open with deep fissures, buildings were torn from the ground, and fleshification began to spread rapidly, fleshy tentacles twisting and growing from the ground cracks. Physical laws were distorted, and gravitational fields materialized as twisted vortices. This is a trap specifically prepared for you and the sentinels. Isaac's twisted shriek echoed from all directions. His will was now omnipresent. Isaac's triumphant mockery echoed, his smug, bird-like head appearing on the colorful barrier wall, looking down at the sentinels from various directions. At this moment, the sentinels were like birds in a cage, and Blazkovich was a trapped beast. The external support forces attacked the barrier with artillery fire. The cold creations of physical laws were futile against the chaotic barrier. In the twisted, chaotic demon realm, darkness was a twisted snake, writhing and crawling on the ground, while light was like a startled deer, frantically struggling to escape. Brothers, beware of flesh corruption. Our power armor is showing flesh mutations. The will of flesh was spreading, and the sentinels, fighting valiantly, found fresh tendrils of flesh growing on the surface of their armor. He roared, warning his comrades and passing on the crucial message. This is no longer the real realm. The gods' defiling power is affecting our equipment. Since stepping into the city, the communication channels had been filled with demonic shrieks, forcing them to cut off all communications. In the chaotic, disordered space, demons had no obstacles to movement. They easily broke through space, appearing from various unexpected places. Sometimes, even before they appeared, their weapon-wielding arms would directly stab into a warrior's body. Malice surged in the chaotic realm, demons grew increasingly powerful, and the concept of immortality became clearer. Boundless chaotic evil thoughts descended, extinguishing the warrior's tenacious will. Twisted gravitational vortices constantly pulled, making the sentinels unstable, and chaotic light refraction distorted the images seen by their eyes. The trap. In the chaotic realm, Blazkowicz punched and killed the demons around him, amidst the chaotic battlefield. His rhetorical question was low, yet clearly reached everyone's ears. With a bloodthirster under his foot and his warhammer pointed at the sky, his face was stained with blood, yet possessed a cruel radiance. Can a sheepfold contain a fearless hero, or can a noose capture a dragon? I brought my warriors here for only one purpose. Blazkowicz raised his warhammer with both hands, the resolve in his eyes real and pure, letting out an impassioned roar. To destroy everything here. The roar of the warhammer hitting the ground was deafening, a mighty blow infused with resolve that shook heaven and earth. This hammer blow seemed to strike the entire city of truth, using will and power to directly confront the entire chaotic realm. The barrier vibrated and space shrieked. The demons were dizzy and disoriented, so shaken by the clash of absolute wills that they could barely kneel or move. The heavy hammer blow Blazkowicz unleashed was not a physical attack, but rather an impact on the very essence of chaos, channeled through his will and fury. Isaac's consciousness projection on the chaotic barrier flickered, his consciousness, extended through chaos, also suffering a severe blow. The law of gravity reasserted itself, and the chaotic realm, which had no up, down, left, or right, returned to three-dimensional constraints amidst the dizzying rotation. This one hammer blow, darkness receded and light reappeared. You are truly too powerful. Beyond my expectations, there's a reason the gods favor you. Isaac said with admiration, shaking his bird-like head to clear the dizziness from his mind. That earth-shattering blow caused the chaotic sorcerer, far away in the city center, to lose his footing and fall into the center of the eight-pointed star. The terrifying power and tenacious will stirred infinite jealousy in Isaac's crazed heart. The power he had so painstakingly sought his entire life was something others possessed inherently. He knelt begging the gods for mercy, but their gaze always remained on Blazkowicz. However, thinking of what was about to happen, a forbidden pleasure surged within Isaac, the pleasure of orchestrating and toying with the downfall of a demigod. To also become a servant of the gods, a perfect blasphemy of an unyielding will. To kneel at the feet of the gods and kiss their toes would be his greatest revenge. Cackle tilde cackle tilde cackle tilde. With a joyful, sinister laugh, Isaac activated the power of chaos, joining other divine priests in launching a grand ritual. The image on the barrier disappeared, and the chanting of spells echoed from the darkness, a sense of urgency rising in Blazkowicz's heart. He knew clearly that the servants of chaos would not give up their resistance, and more evil was gathering. The sentinels were falling, facing the surging tide of demons. Their physical capabilities would tire, and their highly strained nerves would become even more exhausted. These brave and fearless warriors had followed him without complaint or regret. He had to bring them back. With this thought, Blazkowicz's warhammer swung even more ferociously, and he quickened his pace towards the center of the ritual. From the hole in the sky, the power of chaos surged forth even more tempestuously with the recitation of the spells, pouring into the chaotic barrier and strengthening the demons. Drip drop. Guided by the priest's chanting, sickening green raindrops began to fall from the sky. This was not normal rain. It was a blessing from the chaos god Nergal, a painful trial for life. Hiss tilde. A teeth-grinding corrosion spread, and the dense raindrops were all-pervasive, invading through the flickering gaps in the dimensional shields. Harlan, in the midst of slaying enemies with the light of darkness, saw raindrops fall on his power armor, gradually emitting green smoke. Under the erosion of the sickening green rain, the armor plates peeled and festered like rotting flesh. Corrosive raindrops. The champion swordsman anxiously roared, relaying his discovery. Harlan Ogilvy. Blazkowicz roared from the front, summoning his guard. The appearance of the corrosive acid rain made him realize that at the current rate of advance, by the time they reached the ritual center, all the Sentinels' weapons and equipment would be rendered useless. That would be an even greater disaster. In the chaotic realm, armor protection was crucial, an important line of defense against mutation and corruption. The only way now was to temporarily abandon the army around him and stop the ritual from continuing. "Follow me, men." Blazkowicz was at the very front, waiting for Harlan to approach him, intending to charge into the ritual center with his guard. Only Harlan could somewhat keep up with his speed. Slowing down to wait for him still ensured rapid progress. Everyone else form a defensive formation. Use unmutated obstacles to resist the demon attacks and await further orders. Go. After issuing the command, Blazkowicz took Harlan and broke away from the main group, spearheading directly towards the center of the chaotic eight-pointed star. The Sentinels' discipline and tactical prowess meant no extra commands were needed. They would take care of themselves. The demon rain poured down. Master and servant advanced rapidly through the chaotic demon realm. These demon fiends, they're truly endless. Harlan ran at full speed, following behind Blazkowicz, able to rest slightly. He dealt with a few demons that tried to flank or surround them from behind. The minions of chaos are endless. Only by interrupting the ritual can we stop them from entering reality. The giant in front of him swung his warhammer into a blur. No demon could get close. Time was chaotic in the chaotic realm, and distance was a hazy concept. Distance indeed existed quantitatively, but it was not something one could simply reach. For powerful beings like Blazkowicz, distance was fixed. They could actively approach or move away. For ordinary mortals or Harlan, the existence of distance was abstract. The distance between them and their destination might be right before their eyes, but they could not actively approach or leave, passively accepting the disorder of chaos. They might walk for 10,000 years and never reach their destination, or they might appear next to it in the next second. The two moved extremely fast. Blazkowicz did not need to dodge or detour. Supported by his powerful willpower, the chaotic realm retreated before him. Iron boots stepped into the void, and the ground appeared beneath his feet. If a house blocked his path, the space would fold like a kaleidoscope the next second, becoming a clear path. Only the Keeper of Secrets' great demons under the four gods were worthy of blocking Blazkowicz's path. Ordinary demons couldn't even get close before being incinerated by his fiery will. The two slayed demons along the way, and Blazkowicz arrived at the center of the eight-pointed star, where a circular sacrificial pit was visible. Due to the angle, the specifics within the sacrificial pit were not visible. Blazkowicz felt a sudden tremor in his heart, and an ominous premonition crept in. "Oh ho ho tilde." A nauseating chuckle echoed, and he heard a voice both familiar and strange. Blazkowicz's icy fury ignited instantly. The owner of this voice, how could he ever forget? Ennio Novik. Beneath a twisted, thorny spire, Ennio emerged, dragging a twisted longsword whose blade was eerily contorted, scraping foul-smelling slime across the ground. The elegance was gone from his face, his golden hair somewhat pale, and one of his emerald eyes had turned an eerie violet. "No," Blazkowicz looked at his former brother without any pity in his eyes. "Your existence defiles the name Novik." "Then are you going to kill me, my brother?" Blazkowicz looked at Ennio, raising his warhammer without a word. "Leave him to me. You shouldn't bear the sin of fratricide." Harlan stepped out from behind, standing between the two and signaling Blazkowicz to leave quickly. "You go stop the ritual, I'll handle him." "Good." After a glance at Ennio, Blazkowicz continued forward. He had full confidence in Harlan. There were fewer demons near the ritual center, and in a one-on-one fight, Harlan would definitely not lose to Ennio. Enio did not try to stop him, instead gracefully making a please gesture. Because the Keeper of Secrets' great demon possessing him almost couldn't help but laugh out loud, thinking of what was about to happen. Traitor! Harlan took a horse stance, raising dark light high in his right hand, the gunstock resting on his left arm, its black blade pointed directly at Enio. Champion swordsman! Enio twisted his longsword, performing a sword dance as he slowly circled Harlan, a look of indifference on his face. The Keeper of Secrets' languid tone, seemingly disinterested in the fight, was actually enjoying a perverse pleasure. What? Sentinels, are you going to betray your oath? It naturally knew the second oath of the Sentinels, and the feeling of it being defied was truly exhilarating. Coupled with the pain of the soul of this body's owner, it was like sipping fine, fermented wine. Have you been in this hellhole too long, and your mind's gone bad? Harlan's taunt, a hoarse sound through his respirator grill, continued. The second oath requires us to be loyal to King Noak, not to you, traitor. Boring Tilda. Facing a meticulous warrior, the great demon could not shake his will, only making a fool of itself. The Keeper of Secrets shifted its feet, launching an attack with a seductive posture. Despite occupying a human body, its strange footwork displayed an otherworldly skill. The curved longsword transformed into a venomous serpent, spitting poison as it struck at Harlan, its eerie technique beyond human comprehension. Harlan's pupils contracted sharply. He had never seen such swordsmanship. A member of the throne should not possess such skill. Who exactly are you? The gun barrel parried the curved sword, and Harlan's stern challenge rang out. You are definitely not Enio. During their previous encounter in the throne hall, Enio's swordsmanship, though unusual, had always adhered to the upright and balanced style of royal swordsmanship. The current Enio seemed to be a completely different person. Hey ha ha, the Keeper of Secrets laughed wantonly. It enjoyed human surprise and doubt. I am Enio, the prince of the Noak royal family. Scum, you defile the Noak royal family. Harlan was enraged. He saw through the disguise. The person before him was definitely not Enio. It was a demon wearing the prince's skin, constantly committing evil. Oh dear Tilda, I've been discovered, Tilda. The Keeper of Secrets cackled, its longsword extraordinarily sharp, stirring the energies of the chaos domain. The poisoned longsword continuously stabbed at the human before it. I am no longer confined by the real universe. Even with this humble disguise, I can still kill you. It still remembered the wolf-fox appearance it had in the throne hall when Harlan repelled it. Die, Harlan roared, no longer holding back the dark light in his hand, and directly struck the demon's poisoned weapon. Clang tilde. The gun blade and sword blade met, and the demon weapon snapped upon impact. In the demon's surprised and bewildered gaze, the long spear in Harlan's hand, its power undiminished, slashed towards the impostor's neck. I am not who I once was either. Having drunk the primordial soup, Harlan's physical capabilities had increased severalfold. Dealing with a demon possessing a human body, he could perfectly suppress it. The imagined scene of a head rolling did not occur. Harlan abruptly stopped his long spear at the most critical moment. He saw the look of relief in Enio's emerald eye and the cunning expression on the impostor's face. I think I understand your condition now. With a sweep of his long spear, the blade, under exquisite control, dislocated Enio's limb joints. The surrounding demons were becoming fewer and fewer. Blazkovich was rapidly approaching the sacrificial pit in the center of the chaos eight-pointed star. The scene he witnessed made his pupils shrink violently, and the surging anger in his heart made his body tremble. His teeth gnashed, his eyes bloodshot and bulging as he let out a mournful, hateful roar. Chaos. That roar echoed through the barrier, containing boundless hatred, and the scorching fury made chaos tremble. King Noak stood there, dazed. His body had recovered its health, filled with strength as before. No, King Noak was even stronger now, Chaos power flowed within him, making him as tall as Blazkowicz, yet utterly lifeless, like a puppet without a master. In the center of the eight-pointed star was an altar, about 3 meters high, inscribed with various chaos runes. Queen Elise was naked, her body spread out like a cross, her palms nailed into the altar with rusty iron spikes. Her body had been cut open, a single incision from her throat to her lower abdomen. Her sternum and ribs were pried open with hooks, fixed to the altar with iron nails, exposing her internal organs. The skin on her body was covered with evil chaos runes, and fresh red blood flowed from the lines of the runes, dripping little by little into the altar's array. It seemed the chaos array was sustaining her life, and had established some connection with the altar below. Elise's will was conscious. She endured the pain with closed eyes, her lips already bitten raw. Bastard! Blazkowicz's furious roar also contained pain. He had expected his mother to suffer torture, which was why he had so eagerly fought his way into the city of truth. Seeing it in person, he felt even more self-reproach for arriving late. And his father. His body was polluted by chaos, evil magic, becoming a puppet to be wantonly manipulated. Chaos is an extreme with no bottom line. Now, seeing everything before him, Blazkowicz finally understood why the elder had repeatedly mentioned this phrase in his descriptions of chaos. Painful, isn't it? Do you like what I've prepared for you? Isaac slowly emerged from behind the altar, his bird-like body hunched, holding an emerald blue staff. I want you dead. Blazkowicz went all out. He had killed his way here, plundering countless demonic powers. At this moment he was terrifyingly strong. Wielding his Warhammer, he could smash Isaac's head to pieces before he could react. No, he must not be let off so easily. The killing intent in Blazkowicz's eyes solidified, even transforming into invisible swords in the chaos domain, slashing across Isaac's body, leaving wounds. He wanted to break the demon priest's limbs, leave him alive, and make him suffer every kind of painful torture. Isaac indeed did not react. When Blazkowicz's Warhammer struck at its limbs, its face still held a triumphant expression. But someone on the field did react. In Blazkowicz's strange vision, a blood-red greatsword flew in from outside his sight, intercepting the Warhammer's trajectory and saving the priest, who was about to have his limbs broken. The greatsword, its power undiminished, plunged directly into the stone slabs of the ground. Stunned and confused, Blazkowicz looked up. Noack, as tall as himself, faced him, revealing a hearty smile. Isaac reacted then, screaming and flapping its winged arms, quickly fleeing from Blazkowicz. Have no doubt I am not your father. Noack gestured, recalling the blood-red greatsword from beside Blazkowicz. I am merely borrowing this body to bear my will and fight you. Until I determine a victor between us, I will temporarily not allow that cowardly priest to die, nor will I let you save that woman. Oh, and the entity occupying Noack's body brushed off the dust on the greatsword and introduced itself to Blazkowicz. Mortals dare not utter my name. They call me the Blood God, but I grant you a privilege, allowing you to call me Khorne. Boom! As his words fell, blood-red lightning flashed in the chaos domain, and blood rain fell from the hollow of the curtain. The Blood God had spoken his name in the real universe. Blazkowicz's agitated face darkened, his hand involuntarily tightening around his Warhammer. He knew that the being occupying his father's body was a god from the warp. A true god, tilde. Why? Blazkowicz brushed the blood rain from his face and stared at the god, asking in confusion, Why have you set your sights on me? Blazkowicz was truly puzzled. The elder had said that gods rarely left the warp and would not pay too much attention to one person. Yet here he was, truly feeling that the gaze of the four gods was all upon this place. Love, the thrill of the fight, the bloodthirst. Khorne stated an answer dispassionately, expressionless. Love. Blazkowicz looked up at the blood god. He did not want the god's so-called love. He only felt bone-deep hatred for them. Come. There was no avoiding it, no need for more talk. He was fearless, charging towards the blood god with unceasing hatred. Come, boy, the blood god also roared, his battle intent clashing with Blazkovich's killing intent. In excitement, the endless fury on the skull throne burned, unleashed into the real domain. Sword met hammer, sparks and debris flew. The strongest warrior in the real universe was destined to challenge a god. In the fierce collision, Blazkovich's swinging hammerhead was cut in half. No matter how tough mortal weapons were, no matter how meticulously crafted by masters, they could never compare to weapons blessed by gods. The gift from Noak, just like his own fate. Knowing that confronting a god would result in utter destruction, he still, driven by various external forces, charged towards the god without regret. The warhammer was severed, and Blazkovich gripped the remaining hilt, swinging it at extreme speed to continue his assault. Khorne is the strongest warrior in the warp, and Blazkovich is the strongest warrior in the real universe. In the evil, chaotic domain of the warp, its power is immensely strong, reaching its peak when it descends. Blazkovich's rage and resolve for revenge intertwined, transforming into a continuous barrage of fierce attacks, unleashed upon the blood god. If weapons break, use fists. His hate-infused arms became god-slaying iron fists, each strike carrying the force of thunder. More, give in to the slaughter. The blood god roared, dropping its greatsword to meet the challenge with its fists, clashing with Blazkovich while bellowing. For this pure duel, Khorne even made a promise to its divine brethren. Because after this ritual and choice, Blazkovich's fate would be set, no longer vague and uncertain. The gods would make him choose. Fist against fist, foot against foot, savagery against savagery, power against power. The battle between one man and one god was terrifying. The shockwaves they generated made Isaac tremble, forcing him to hide far away to protect himself. He didn't even have the courage to peek. The movements of the two had long surpassed what a mortal's eyes could perceive. How could a priest, not yet fully ascended to demonhood, clearly see the attack speed of two beings who transcended humanity? Khorne was the embodiment of violence. It wantonly used Noak's body to unleash violence, adding a primal and savage touch to the battle with its bloody roars. Noak's dignity was twisted, his expression as grotesque as a terrifying embodiment, his blood-red eyes devoid of any reason. Blazkovich's battle was silent as iron, his eyes holding only cold resolve, his face heroic and stern, the will for revenge etched into his brow. Seeing his father's desecrated corpse, his iron fists grew stronger with each strike, challenging the blood god for the sin of desecrating the corpse. Sonic booms continuously erupted and shockwaves swept wildly. The sacrificial pit vibrated and the chaotic domain trembled. The demons shivered. They felt the will of their god descend, locked in a duel with a powerful enemy. The sentinels fought with renewed vigor. Only Blazkovich's battle could possess such might. He was fighting a god. The incessant rapid attacks made Khorne feel the fatigue in its body, and it was greatly displeased. This mortal body, in a pure contest of strength and speed, gradually fell behind, and muscle strain began to appear during rapid movement. The blood god accelerated its absorption of chaotic power to sustain the body, but it still couldn't keep up with the rate of collapse. Facing Blazkovich's fierce offensive, Khorne retaliated with equal ferocity. Amidst the sharp attacks, the body's function steadily declined, gradually revealing weaknesses. Another hook punch came, and this time the blood god couldn't block it, getting hit directly in the chest, sending its descending body flying a considerable distance. As its body flew backward, blood-red blood god power and dark chaotic power overflowed from its nose and mouth. But it still clamored, unsated, unbroken, unfulfilled. Khorne sensed the impurity. An iron fist aimed at its head was deflected, striking its chest instead. It knew, of course, that Blazkovich had hesitated for a moment when striking the head of this body. This was his father's body. Even though it was possessed, Blazkowicz still wanted to reclaim it, to leave a whole corpse. "What are you hesitating for?" The blood god braced its hands on the ground, driving this body, on the verge of shattering, to stabilize itself from its fall. Its blood-red eyes watched Blazkowicz rushing towards it, and it shook its head with displeasure, growling, "Defilement stains the duel. Cast off emotion, embrace your rage. What is your so-called purity? A slaughtering machine that only knows how to fight." Blazkowicz's sharp retort was no longer verbal. He continuously threw punches, embedding his questions into his fists. "This lowly body has reached its end. Why not let me help you purify it?" It was knocked flying again. The blood god would not answer or understand emotions. It was the manifestation of pure violence, abhorring all existence that did not twist into violence. Following the blood god's will, an endless river of blood descended from the warp, submerging Noak's standing corpse. Blazkowicz quickly pursued, rushing into the river of blood. Amidst the crimson, he embraced a physical form, pulling it out of the bloody river. As the crimson before him vanished, he saw only the terrifying, grotesque grin of the blood god when he clearly saw the body in his arms. Noak's corpse was disfigured. He had transformed with a face resembling a bloodthirster demon, his body tinged with a blood-like red and encased in brass armor. "I will kill you." Blazkowicz's eyes were bloodshot. His last shred of illusion vanished from his mind. He had only wanted to give his father a complete corpse, but such a simple wish had dissolved into thin air under the manipulation of the chaos god. He lowered his hands from embracing the blood god, wrapping them around its waist from behind, allowing the rain of punches to strike his own body. Looking at the struggling chaos god in his embrace, Blazkowicz, bruised and battered, stared into its eyes and said earnestly, "I am a human being of flesh and blood and emotion. Korn, leave his body and let him rest. One day in the future, when I kill you, I will also give you a swift end." His large hands squeezed tighter and tighter. He gave Korn no more chance to speak, his burning eyes fixed on it. "Impossible." The blood god conveyed its meaning with its eyes, delivering an elbow strike to Blazkowicz's head, causing blood to flow from his nose and mouth. The blood god was the embodiment of strife. How could it yield to Blazkowicz's threats? Blazkowicz loved him and offered him his supreme favor. But its love, in all its forms, only allowed acceptance. It would not allow rejection. Blazkowicz bled from all 7 orifices amidst the blood god's counterattack, yet he seemed oblivious, as if he felt no pain. He took one last look at the blood god, at that body still bearing 3/10 resemblance to his father, then closed his eyes. He exerted force with his arms, and with a crack, the blood god's incarnated lumbar spine was directly crushed by a great force. Any vertebrate, losing the support of its lumbar spine, becomes completely powerless. "No, no, no." The blood god waved its arms, screaming, feeling no killing intent in the act of murder, only deep pity. "In your immortal life, mortals are but passers-by. These lowly emotions will only hinder you." This time, Blazkowicz did not respond. He clasped its back neck and lower back, lifted it high, and looked up at the constantly struggling figure. Without a beginning, there is no end. Gods can never understand. Even at this moment, when Blazkowicz thought of King Noak, a trace of warmth still welled up in his heart. He clasped the blood god's hands even tighter. It was time to send it away, to give his father release. "Begone, corns." His words filled with remembrance, Blazkowicz forcefully pulled Noak's body down, his back impacting Blazkowicz's knee. A gush of blood erupted, Noak's body burst into a bloody mist, and the shattered form could no longer sustain itself. Unsatisfying, I crave more. The blood gods will transformed into a bloody mist and vanished, its message in the void filled with extreme displeasure. A perfect battle it had anticipated ended in pity, not matching its psychological expectation of blood-splattering fervor. With its departure, Noak's demonized corpse also turned into flying ashes, completely disappearing from the universe. Blazkowicz reached out to grasp the ashes, but could not hold them, like a wisp of smoke that never existed. "Farewell, father." A soft murmur sent his father off. In future memories, there wouldn't even be a grave to commemorate him. Noak was the kindling in Blazkowicz's life. He ignited himself, turning into embers and dust, but that bright flame and warmth would forever remain in Blazkowicz's heart. He stood up and turned. Now no one could stop his revenge. His footsteps sounded like a death knell, his face like ice as he walked step by step towards Isaac, the sharp killing intent in his eyes like a carving knife, intending to slowly torture him to death. Facing Blazkowicz, who approached with rage, a sense of oppression enveloped Isaac, and his body involuntarily trembled. But he was not flustered. There was no fear in his eyes because he knew Blazkowicz loved Elise. The shadow cast by the tall figure enveloped the trembling Isaac, and Blazkowicz put his hand on his shoulder, a cruel smile on his face. Now the sorcerer and warrior faced each other. Isaac was sweating profusely, yet dared not make any sudden moves. The man before him had just sent the blood gods will back to the warp. Facing such a powerful being, any defiant action from the priest would invite a thunderous attack. "End the ritual?" Blazkowicz smiled, yet there was no amusement in his expression, only a stagnant pool in his dark eyes. Crack, with a slight squeeze of his fingers, the sorcerer's fragile, hollow bird bone shattered, and his entire shoulder collapsed with it. "Ugh." Blazkowicz's superhuman hearing caught Elise's painful groan from the altar. His heart tightened, and he grabbed the priest, leaping onto the altar. Elise lay in the center of the altar, her body desecrated by chaos, with the same collapsed shoulder as Isaac. "Look at this, Blazkowicz." Isaac's dark claw pulled open his robe. Beneath the robe, his body had no feathers, but was similarly inscribed with chaotic runes. "The chaotic runes bind my life and Lady Elise's closely together. We live and die as one. Do not attempt to kill me or Elise to end the ritual." Isaac and Blazkowicz locked eyes. Then Isaac instinctively turned his head, saying guiltily, "We are a trinity. If one is harmed, all are harmed." The ritual array carved into his body seemed to give Isaac some courage, and his voice no longer trembled. "The ritual cannot be stopped. This is the will of the gods. They will not allow it to be interrupted." Blazkowicz looked deeply at the priest, understanding that this chaos ritual was prepared by the gods for him. How many absurd things had this hideous birdman in his hand, done under the drive of the gods? Blazkowicz's fists clenched, cracking audibly, wishing he could immediately skin, disembowel, and gut this beast. Isaac's heart pounded. Just moments ago, he dared to mock Blazkowicz freely, but facing him now, fear choked his throat, rendering him speechless. Taking a deep breath, his broad shoulders heaved. Blazkowicz ultimately did not dare to harm his mother further. He ripped off Isaac's robe, tossing him aside like a worm with no dignity. He carefully covered his mother's body, restoring some dignity to her, protecting her from the endless defilement of chaos. Blazkowicz looked up at the void in the sky, the void corrupted by chaos, directly connected to the warp. "Gods, I know you have always been there." His words held no shouts, no hatred, no fury. They seemed devoid of all emotion. Calm words echoed in the sacrificial pit as he looked at the broken sky, stating a fact. The gaze of the four gods had been present the entire time. They watched him from the depths of the warp, then set up the altar, allowing him to choose. As Blazkowicz summoned, four figures appeared in the warp's void. They were the wills of the chaos gods. The putrid swelling of sickly green, the depraved craving of purple-pink, the fickle change of blue-gray, the tyrannical rage of blood-red. Their appearance was without warning, without any superfluous might, as if they had existed there since before the beginning of eternity. They silently looked at Blazkowicz, the gaze of the gods converging on the amphitheater like sacrificial pit. Boom tilde. Blue flames ignited along the edge of the sacrificial pit. Lush, decaying grass sprouted from the ground. Scalding blood rain fell, and sinful thorns burst forth from the earth. Merely a gaze, and the concepts of the gods encroached upon the realm of reality. This land, if nothing unexpected occurred, would be their eternal territory. Ah, tilde, tilde, tilde. Isaac wailed. His hunched body began to twist, manifesting terrifying multiple mutations. Under the gaze of the gods, the priest crawled painfully on the ground, thorns piercing its flesh, blood rain corroding its body, and decay spreading through every cell. Lord of Change? Isaac's voice was shrill and humble, calling out to the god it devoutly worshipped, to whom it had dedicated everything with all its heart and might. The god did not respond, nor did it even look at its worshipper. Its gaze was fixed on the altar, on the man standing tall and proud, meeting the god's gaze without fear. Blazkowicz naturally noticed Isaac's transformation and instinctively shielded Elise, blocking the direct gaze of the gods. Perhaps due to the power of the gods, Isaac's mutation did not affect Elise. Or perhaps it could be understood that the gods did not permit Elise to mutate. Isaac howled and screamed. The demonic body it had been given now exhibited features of all four gods under their infection. Wings and feathers sprouted from its back. Its body began to swell and bloat until it festered, various stimulating hidden organs emerged. Its fingers became sharp, and its teeth mutated into blades. Blazkowicz watched it coldly, the once elegant and composed high priest, now a pitiful wretch abandoned by chaos. The terrifying screams of pain were incessant. Isaac's body mutated continuously, its genes changing and reorganizing chaotically, its limbs constantly being torn and displaced. Finally, its limbs and torso merged into one, becoming an egg-shaped lump of flesh with a face. Its expression was dull and numb, becoming the most defiled chaos egg. "Do you like it, my gift?" An ethereal voice reached him. Its words had no two syllables alike, yet the chaotic speech was understandable. Lord of Change. Blazkowicz saw a phantom figure, the size of a normal person, sitting cross-legged in the void beside the sacrificial pit, constantly flowing and changing. I only have pity in my heart. He shook his head and said to Etched, I deeply abhor his actions and would not hesitate to kill him, but I pity a soul that has been toyed with. Is that so? Etched pondered Blazkowicz's words, drawing a phantom image in the air with his hand. It seems you have a great misunderstanding about us. He displayed a scene, Blazkowicz's most bitter memory, everything that happened in the throne hall that day. His arrogance and conceit caused a deviation in the plan. I merely discarded an unhandy tool. Blazkowicz silently shook his head. The words of chaos were not to be trusted. But you are different. Etched's bizarre voice was very calm, like a wise elder. Blazkowicz, why do you think I am here? Because the gods believe you should not look up to us but regard us as equals. Then why did you slaughter my father and desecrate his corpse? Blazkowicz glanced at the lofty gods, then pointed to Elise on the ground, his voice gradually growing cold as he questioned. You nailed my mother to the ground, letting her suffer endless humiliation and pain. That was an accident. Etched remained calm, not angered by the hatred. It was a recoverable accident, including everything now. It can all be recovered. Recoverable? Blazkowicz's brows furrowed, and he narrowed his eyes at Etched's phantom. How can it be recovered? Etched's shoulders shook in high spirits. If they could talk, there was room for negotiation. They would propose a price that Blazkowicz could not refuse, bringing him under the four gods' sway. The Lord of Change gestured with his fingers, chanting ancient, mystical syllables, casting a spell. Blazkowicz watched him warily, feeling no threat, and the sacrificial array on the ground showed no signs of activating. What was he trying to do? Soon, Etched answered Blazkowicz's question. A white star was cast down from the warp, caught in his hand. His withered palm opened, revealing something that made Blazkowicz gasp. "The soul of your beloved father." Zinch's words were extremely alluring, even using endearments to stir Blazkowicz's emotions. Blazkowicz's body trembled, instinctively wanting to rush forward and snatch it. "Don't rush, Tilda, my dear Blazkowicz." Zinch raised his hand, gently closing it, and chuckled, stopping Blazkowicz. "What if I get a little nervous and this fragile soul is completely destroyed?" Noak's miniature transparent soul floated in Zinch's hand. Zinch chuckled, then offered the god's price. "We can resurrect him." Blazkowicz's gaze never left Noak's soul. He asked in a low voice, "Then what is the price?" He knew there was no free lunch. Chaos always valued equivalent exchange. "Swear allegiance to us?" Zinch's magic displayed in the air, his words full of seduction, passionately describing the future. "Swear your fealty, and we shall anoint you the sole chosen of the four. The warp itself shall bind our oath. We will never betray you. You will possess our power, endless armies, and a supreme status equal to the gods. Your father, your mother, your brothers, and all the soldiers who follow you, they will achieve eternity existing with you forever." Blazkowicz listened to Zinch's narrative. Although he knew the gods were full of lies, his heart wavered slightly. What if, even if it was just a slim chance? Swearing allegiance to the gods, everything could return to how it was, and all sacrifices and deaths could be avoided. "You will be free, cherished by us. We will never restrict or demand anything from you." Perhaps sensing Blazkowicz's hesitation, Zinch continued to make promises. "You can ask us for anything. We will never refuse any of your requests." Blazkowicz looked down at Elise. Her pained expression tugged at his heartstrings, and Noak had hope of resurrection. His heart struggled. The gods' terms were too generous, practically a one-sided gift. When the warp gods are willing to swear an oath for something, it means they will not easily break their promise. "Look at what we've prepared for you." With an alien lilt twisting its words, Zinch spread its many arms wide, voice dripping with mockery. What a perfect stage for an oath, is it not? But what is a stage without an audience? Come now, witnesses are essential. Like a deranged master of ceremonies, it swept its clawed hand toward the shadows, inviting the players onto the stage to behold the drama of their chosen hero. From the darkness, the sentinels emerged, broken, staggering, their armor eaten by the corrosive rain, their flesh blistered and rotting beneath. They circled the sacrificial pit one by one, faces pale and hollow-eyed as they gazed upon Blazkowicz. Unseen when Zinch had first arrived, it had swept the demons aside, whispering the path clear, herding the sentinels here. Now they stood as the unwilling audience, the perfect witnesses for this cruel ritual of choice. The conversation between God and mortal had already echoed through the minds of every watchman present. Blazkowicz raised his head. Less than half remained. Half of their number had been left behind, claimed by the storm. Above them, the green acid rain fell without pause, eating into steel, flesh, and spirit alike. It gnawed at their strength, turned their wounds septic, and corroded their very will. Pain spread like a plague among them. Some crawled, others leaned on comrades, but all refused to let the stretcher slip. They bore Blazkowicz's weight as if the fate of the world depended on it. They were tattered, burned, and weary, but not yet broken. And that precisely was Zinch's design, to let them linger, to let them suffer, to make their suffering a weapon. It opened the stage, drew back the curtain, and let the tragic state of the sentinels press upon Blazkowicz's heart like an invisible noose. Only one person stood outside the barrier, watching Blazkowicz with wide eyes. Harlan Ogilvy, the champion swordsman, Blazkowicz's personal attendant, his mentor and friend. He was the companion who, at the most critical moment, led Blazkowicz to the Crystal Mountains to meet the ancient sage. He carried an ancient artifact on his shoulder, dragging the crippled Enio, and arrived at the edge of the sacrificial pit. Harlan removed his helmet, his expression extremely complex. The look in his eyes towards Blazkowicz held an inexplicable, resolute determination. He had also heard the deal proposed by the Chaos God, an exceptionally generous deal. The memories sealed in his mind were awakened by the impact of keywords, and he too had arrived at the place of destiny's choice. Flames blocked the warrior's path. A barrier surrounded the sacrificial pit, protecting the audience while isolating all sound, preventing Blazkowicz from being disturbed by them. The mortal warriors were separated by the barrier, as if watching a sacred tragedy, witnessing the demigods tearing between divine oracle and humanity. "Don't let them down." Harlan clutched his gun to his chest, using sign language and lip reading to convey his final message to Blazkowicz. "He told me to kill you." "Blazkowicz, quickly swear your oath of allegiance," Etched urged, pointing to the haggard sentinels. "This heavy rain will not stop. They are walking towards death. You only need to pledge allegiance, and their suffering will vanish. The fallen soldiers will rise again and return to your side." The Chaos God's mouthpiece incited and urged relentlessly. Etched believed that Blazkowicz's love for his parents, his love for the Sentinels, and his love for Argent Nur would make him choose correctly. Blazkowicz let out a long breath. His boundless physical and mental strength were now consumed by endless fatigue and pressure. He looked up at the expectant gods in the warp, then at his father's soul in Tzynch's hand, then surveyed the sentinels around him, finally fixing his gaze on Elise. The gaze of man, the gaze of God. All converged on Blazkowicz. He had to make a choice. Under countless expectations, the majestic figure knelt on one knee, tears of pain and unwillingness flowing from the corners of his eyes. He gently picked up his mother. Her body was not heavy, one arm was enough for her to rest peacefully. Covered by a robe, Elise was like a sleeping beauty, quietly slumbering in her son's broad arms. "Please forgive me, Mother." The gods used the lives of the sentinels, King Noak and Elise, to force Blazkowicz to make a choice. His broad hand brushed Elise's porcelain-white face, the only part of her body without a trace of chaos. Blazkowicz's hand trembled, his powerful body trembled, his heart trembled. He knew that until he made a choice, this ritual would never end. The focal point of the ritual was Queen Elise. Her life was closely tied to the ritual, enduring eternal suffering under the Chaos God's wicked magic. "Forgive me, Mother." Blazkowicz's voice choked. He lowered his head and gently kissed his mother's forehead as a large hand, trembling, gripped her throat. "I imagine you must be in great pain. It's time to say goodbye." Under the astonished and shocked gaze of the gods, his hand constricted Elise's slender throat. "A monstrous sin." Blazkowicz's hand trembled, tears rolled down, but his resolve was unshaken. Only this could save the sentinels, only this could break the gods' trap. The hand that could easily take the life of a great demon now seemed to encounter 1,000 obstacles, struggling to end the fragile life in his arms. A power capable of shaking stars found it difficult to strike the killing blow, and it could not save her life. The briefly astonished gods all craned their necks, savoring the primal evil emanating from the sin of matricide. They greedily sucked in the sin, intoxicated by the taste of pain and sorrow, as if savoring fine wine. The warp churned, and the intense emotions of powerful beings stirred up a storm of emotions within the warp. "Lola!" Blazkowicz roared, the fierce pain and the necessary killing threatening to tear him apart. Images from the past flashed through his mind, her gentleness, her teachings, her selfless kindness to him. He hated his extraordinary memory. Why were those images so terrifyingly clear, preventing him from killing her? Meanwhile, far away on Terra, the Doom Slayer Legion gathered together, suddenly felt a surge of sorrow. Before they could react, emotions that had long been suppressed suddenly reappeared, and hot tears streamed from the corners of their eyes. "What happened?" He asked his brother, but received no answer. "Please forgive me, Mother." Saying goodbye one last time, Blazkowicz closed his eyes, then clenched his hand, trying to make her pain-free. Crack, finally a son twisted his mother's neck, killing the person he loved most. He seemed to lose all his strength, weakly lowering his arm and placing his mother back on the ground. The gods felt both joy and sorrow at Blazkovich's choice, yet they savored the sweetness of evil, relishing the perfect sin. Waves surged in the warp, and the hidden grief and sorrow within were awakened by a powerful entity. Blazkovich slowly stood up, his head bowed. No one could see his expression. He only felt a heart-wrenching pain. Those warm memories of being cared for were being extracted from every cell by suffering. Losing both parents in one day, and even personally killing his mother. The pain he had suppressed since his father's death seemed to find an outlet, gushing out all at once, merging with the grief of losing his mother. Lila. That desperate roar of grief pierced the reality realm, entered the warp, and even made the demons feel a deep sting. They watched to see whose sorrow had stirred up the storm, searching for the source of the pain, so real and profound. In his private room on Terra, the Emperor's face darkened as he sensed the storm of pain in the warp. He closed his eyes and plunged into the warp. You must not be in danger. Blazkovich stood somewhat unsteadily on the altar, a black aura emanating from him, the materialized form of pain. The sentinels instinctively turned their faces away, not daring to look at him anymore, their eyes stung by the materialized pain. That pure black aura passed through the reality realm and drifted towards the warp, finally meeting the pain of the Sea of Souls. Rumble tilde. Black lightning struck in the warp, and a black storm of pain advanced, eventually meeting Blazkovich's grief. Shared emotions resonated in the warp, then merged together. Bang, bang, bang. The striking lightning was like a heartbeat, and the storm of pain seemed to be giving birth to something. Oh ho ho. A clear female laugh came from the center of the storm. A new demigod was born in the warp. Emerging from the storm, her black body was that of a naked human female, her torso and limbs covered in thorns, holding a thorny whip. Laughing in pain, dancing in grief, her divine name was the Queen of Pain. The Queen of Pain's face closely resembled Elise's. With a laugh, she transformed into a black mist and vanished into the warp. The demigod's instinct drove her to distance herself from the god's gaze. The storm in the warp did not subside with the birth of the Queen of Pain. Instead, it intensified, awakening a deeper existence. Blazkovich endured the torment. The pain did not break him, he devoured it. The unbearable grief ebbed, leaving behind only a hollow space where rage could take root. The warp shivered with the weight of his resolve. A single breath escaped his lips, slow and deliberate. His head lifted, and his eyes met the gods, the architects of his suffering, the tyrants of eternity. Their gazes locked across the abyss. Sparks of raw divinity clashed with the unyielding iron of his will, and the void itself crackled like a storm before the end of days. The pain receded. What remained was fury, pure, corrosive vengeance howling for release. The realm of chaos quaked, the warp screamed. Blazkovich's face twisted into a mask of hate so absolute it bordered on the inhuman. His eyes burned, not with madness but with purpose. His gaze cut through the waiting gods, piercing the marrow of the warp itself. He raised his arm, fist clenched until nails split his flesh and knuckles cracked like breaking stone. And then he spoke. The Emperor racing through the warp heard it too, an oath carried on the currents of madness. I am Blazkovich. His voice was calm, too calm, the calm of a volcano moments before eruption. I am the son of the sky, Noach's third son, I am. His chest heaved. Rage exploded from his core, tearing through the warp like a nova. I am the prophesied Doom Slayer. Boom. The warp convulsed. I hate the gods. I will kill the gods. I will have my vengeance. The scream became a storm. His hatred took form, flames igniting upon his skin, primal wrath boiling his very blood. I will scour chaos from existence. I will carve my name into your graves. His roar shattered the silence of millennia, stirring something ancient, something the gods had buried deep. The concept of God-slaying, older than their thrones, older than their lies, stirred. The warp is eternal, yet never still. Its darkest tides had always slumbered, waiting for one mad enough, strong enough, hateful enough to call them forth. And now Blazkowicz had. The tide surged, demons shrieked from distant gulfs. The four gods fell silent, their immortal confidence curdling into something unfamiliar, apprehension. The slumbering idea awakened. God-killers of ages past whispered in the void, lending their wrath to a mortal who dared defy the infinite. Blazkowicz stood at the altar, his body wreathed in scarlet flame, his declaration of war shaking every layer of the immaterium. The rune on his chest ignited. Ancient, forbidden, the essence of the Doom Slayer, the mark of a creator god long lost, blazed forth. Even Tzinch, the one who claims to know all, stared and murmured, "I do not know." It was the first time he had spoken those words. The essence answered Blazkowicz. It bled from his soul. Slaughter, eradication, annihilation, pure concepts given shape by his boundless wrath. His left hand burned as the rune imprinted itself into his palm. Concepts demanded a vessel, so he chose. He struck the altar, stone shattered like brittle bone. From the rubble he seized a jagged fragment. "Even this," he growled, lifting the shard high. "Even with a broken stone, I will slay Gods." The flames engulfed the jagged rock, licking it with raw, unbridled fury. The primal essence of stone, the eternal, unyielding truth of hardness, twisted and reshaped under his wrath. From the molten fracture emerged a hilt, forged not by hands but by the pure force of his killing intent. And from that intent a blade was born, sharp as vengeance itself, blazing with the fire of his soul. With a roar, Blazkowicz slammed his marked palm against the crossguard. Crack! Red light erupted, runes of slaughter racing along the edge. Serrated, vicious, cursed, a weapon born not of mercy but of judgment. Gods. He raised the newborn blade toward the four watching in the void. "This is my vow, this is my witness. Look well, this will be your undoing." Rumbles. The warp answered. The god-slaying concept poured into the weapon like a flood of molten stars. Leather of demon hide wrapped the grip. The runes howled. Its name spoke itself, the crucible. Judgment. A weapon that erases divinity. A blade to end gods, a crucible for their extinction. When the sword manifested, the gods knew. This was no mortal blade. It was the first true god-slaying weapon, a force to rival their own creations. Blazkowicz gripped it in both hands, and the blade grew, becoming a greatsword, crimson light casting his face in the glow of apocalypse. "Come," he whispered. His voice was low, steady, lethal. "Come, gods, today we settle our accounts." The warp went still. The golden sun halted its march, listening. Then, after a long, tense pause, it turned, its path no longer forward but back. "No matter where you flee, no matter where you hide," Blazkowicz vowed, "I will find you. I will unmake you, piece by piece." Chapter 43, Doomslayer Legion. I, the enemy of the Gods. Blazkowicz raised the crucible sword, pointing it at the high and mighty gods. With a downward swing, the tip of the sword was wreathed in destructive power. In the warp-transformed space, the crucible sword's power was boundless. The sacrificial pit, inscribed with blasphemous formations, crumbled as he swung the crucible sword. He withdrew his long sword, gripping the hilt with both hands, the blade pointing downwards like an ancient knight taking an oath. "I am the enemy of chaos." The crucible sword descended, and the flames of Blazkowicz's wrath seeped into the ground, igniting the ritual array and incinerating the blasphemous lines. The barrier shattered, and the flames spread along the eight-pointed star symbol, reaching further and further. Doomslayer, enemy of chaos, enemy of the Gods, their doom. The sentinels shouted, cheering for the Doomslayer's unyielding spirit. He had not succumbed to the gods under the temptation of absolute power. Even after committing matricide, he still chose to save the sentinels. He stood against the gods, challenging the deities. Under Blazkovich's protection, the gods' gazes could not harm or corrupt anyone. Substantial wrath spread everywhere, burning away the corruption of chaos, and the foul acid rain evaporated into hissing smoke. Isaac, transformed into a chaos egg, was ignited by the wrathful flames, crackling and burning. Harlan pushed Enio into the flames. Though the flames did not harm him, they caused the demon host to wail in agony. The Keeper of Secrets' demonic concept disintegrated within Enio, and the chaos god's blessing, which twisted pain into pleasure, was utterly ineffective at this moment. It genuinely felt the harm, and the wrath, fueled by the demon, burned even more fiercely. You won't get off so easily. As the demon weakened, Enio's soul was liberated, and he regained control of his body. He crawled out of the flames, also saving the demon, allowing the Keeper of Secrets to continue its lingering existence within him, awaiting judgment. Welcome back. Harlan extended his large hand and pulled Enio from the ground. The demon could no longer cause trouble. It's good to touch you again. Enio shed tears, his heart having endured immense torment. Actually, it would have been good if I had died too. After a brief greeting, their gazes returned to the center of the sacrificial